Chapter 2252. Fighting Phantoms. The king of the 10,000 beasts' first life had been the most splendid and glorious one, but also the most humiliating one. Lin Feng didn't understand what that meant. However, he could imagine that kind of humiliation had made him what he had become. Now, he was emotionless and so strong. He stood at the top, and he didn't care about anyone or anything. 5 more lives, and you will start understanding me, smiled the king of the 10,000 beasts. Once again, Lin Feng's soul emerged from his body. Each time Lin Feng lived one of the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives, he had the impression he had reincarnated. He didn't feel those lives were the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. When Lin Feng experienced a few more lives, he felt confused. He hadn't even finished his own life, and he had experienced 7 of the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. As one could well imagine, it was a shocking experience. Lin Feng's soul was returned his body. He closed his eyes and forget about the outside world. He thought about all the things he had experienced. He kept telling himself that those lives weren't his, but the king of the 10,000 beasts. He had just observed those lives. He couldn't let those lives influence him. He couldn't become like the king of the 10,000 beasts. The 7 lives turned into 7 stars in his brain. Around the stars were his own memories. He couldn't mix them with the others. The king of the 10,000 beasts' lives could be beneficial to him, as long as he didn't mix everything up. Lin Feng opened his eyes. He looked normal again. He inspected those lives using his own memories and experience, studying them from the outside. Lin Feng used the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures. However, this time he didn't use the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures to modify strength. He used them to modify those memories, those lives. The Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures were extremely powerful. They allowed him to study those memories while staying relatively safe. Using the things he had studied in the Fortune Shrine's archive hall, Lin Feng studied for 10 days and 10 nights, and after that, he felt exhausted and stopped. He frowned, opened his eyes and sighed. The king of the 10,000 beasts, in each life, broke through after having understood something great. Each time, he loved his teachers, but in the end, everything becomes cold. In his second life, he was in love with his female junior fellow disciple, but then he became extremely strong and killed her, and at the same time he understood something great. All of this is related to the 8 distresses. You become emotionless as you become stronger. Apart from his first 2 lives, the 5 other ones were similar. He understood incredible things and changed. However, the king of the 10,000 beasts and I are different. I'm at the top of the Huang Qi layer, but I can't break through to the Di Qi layer. The 10,000 things of creation originate from the same things. I control my own world, but it still needs to be improved. I don't know what will happen in the future. I don't know what my close ones will do in the future. However, I think I understand what to do now. Lin Feng stood up and walked into that world. That city was like another world, indeed. It was different from all the worlds in which the king of the 10,000 beasts had lived in his previous lives. Of course, when cultivators became stronger, their lives became similar, no matter what world they lived in. Someone came over to Lin Feng. It was the body the king of the 10,000 beasts had in this life. He was in the sky, looking down at Lin Feng. You still haven't broken through to the Di Qi layer, even though you've experienced my lives? The king of the 10,000 beasts didn't understand. He had noticed Lin Feng's physical strength, soul, and comprehension were incredible. He had an incredible sense of judgment and couldn't be mistaken about Lin Feng. Nevertheless, Lin Feng had experienced his lives and still hadn't broken through. As long as a cultivator remained determined, there was no reason for them not to break through. However, Lin Feng was still at the top of the Huang Qi layer. King of the 10,000 beasts, those are your lives. I studied them, but it was useless. My cultivation is different. I have my own life. Therefore, if I stay here, I won't be able to become stronger. I hope you'll let me leave this place, Lin Feng said calmly. You want to leave the king of the 10,000 beasts territory? Repeated the king of the 10,000 beasts. He didn't understand how Lin Feng felt. Just after studying your lives, I had the impression you were me. Perhaps many people who come here admire and respect you, and I respect and admire you too. However, I am still me. As you said, if I stand at the top, then nobody will humiliate me ever again. When I reach the top, I will come back and meet you again, I think, Lin Feng said calmly. The king of the 10,000 beasts' eyes glittered as he stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng would come back after reaching the top? He was truly self-confident. Apart from me, only suzerains and fighting phantoms can come in and out freely, said the king of the 10,000 beasts to Lin Feng calmly. If you want to leave, you must become a suzerain or a fighting phantom. But those suzerains have reached the peak of perfection. You won't have the opportunity to reach the peak of perfection before 50 years, I think. And a fighting phantom, you're just an emperor. If you want to win against some of the strongest great imperial beasts and become the strongest one of a territory, it will be extremely difficult as well. You'll have to break through to the Di-Chi layer first, said the king of the 10,000 beasts. A suzerain or a fighting phantom. He's even more terrifying than I thought Lin Feng. Maybe those who could go in and out freely could infiltrate the continent of the 9 clouds. How do I become a fighting phantom? Asked Lin Feng. I suggest you don't bring about your own destruction. First, focus on breaking through to the Di-Chi layer, and then you may have an opportunity, said the king of the 10,000 beasts. How do I become a fighting phantom? Lin Feng asked again. The king of the 10,000 beasts looked amused and smiled. You're in a world of heroes. If you want to become a fighting phantom, you have to make a public announcement and say you want to become a fighting phantom. Then, you'll have 7 days to rest, after which you'll fight against a terrifying amount of beasts. As long as they are great emperors, they can fight against you and try to kill you. After 3 months, if you're not dead, you'll become a fighting phantom. A public announcement. Lin Feng frowned. That was even more terrifying than the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Can they join hands to fight against me? Asked Lin Feng. They cannot. But they can fight against you one after another as they wish, without waiting, replied the king of the 10,000 beasts. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He couldn't fight against groups, that was obvious, however, even one-on-ones, that was incredible. Lin Feng couldn't imagine what it would be like. Qinghai's rock, Hezi's Maharaga, such people were terrifying. They were geniuses. What about great imperial weapons? Asked Lin Feng. You can't use them, said the king of the 10,000 beasts, shaking his head. There have been only 100 and some fighting phantoms in history, less than 200. Only one appears every 1,000 years or so, and they were all great emperors. Now, they've become my best assistants. They replace suzerains who die. That's dangerous, said Lin Feng, rather annoyed. Of course, when someone becomes a fighting phantom, they have lots of advantages. I even give them the army of a whole world, said the king of the 10,000 beasts coolly. Lin Feng's eyes glittered and he said, I'll go out and think. Study my 7 lives properly. When you reach the top of the Di-Chi layer, you can try, said the king of the 10,000 beasts calmly. He waved his hand, and Lin Feng appeared outside of the king of the 10,000 beasts' inner city. Lin Feng crossed the door through which he had come in. Very quickly, he arrived back where he had started. He was wondering whether Bai Yu and the others had come out or not. They had probably experienced the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives as well. Fighting phantom, a public announcement, thought Lin Feng. He had no choice. It was the only solution to leave that place. He had to become strong first. He had no choice now. The meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds had shaken the whole continent of the 9 clouds. After that, things had calmed down. Many new geniuses had started springing up, like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. In hell, there was a young man called Mo Zheng. He was insane. He had no enemy at the same cultivation level. He was a successor of the ancient demon clan, and one of the grandsons of the 10 Yama Court's kings. He was also a member of the Hell Shrine. All his social statuses were dazzling. He went to the celestial country alone and killed many people. He wanted to go to the continent of the 9 clouds. At the same time, in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, some geniuses were rising. In the Snow Clan, 2 young monarchs, a beautiful woman and a handsome young man, had appeared. It was said that they were mother and son. Chapter 2253, Fighting Phantom Protectors. By you and the others were back together in the Great Rock's palace. At that moment they were together. He's the only one who hasn't come back. How was it in town? Asked Bai Yu calmly. I experienced a life. What about you? Asked Dinua calmly. The others understood and nodded. A life, the life of a very strong sword cultivator, said Bai Yu, staring at them. Mine wasn't like that, it was the life of a peerless demon cultivator, said Qinghai's rock. Everybody was startled. The dark golden-pupiled king said, the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives were terrifying. He's been living for such a long time. I could study one of his lives for years and years. But why did my father die? Bai Yu pulled a long face. She was furious. Her father had come to this place. After coming out, he wanted to break through. What had happened? What difficulty had he faced? Old poisonous monster, what are you doing? Qinghai's rock asked Heezy's Maharaga. His eyes were closed. I'm going to break through to the next cultivation layer. I can feel it, said the old poisonous monster, smiling evilly and hissing. The others were surprised. He was actually a middle-aged man, much older than them. He had been famous for a long time, but he hadn't managed to break through. After experiencing a life, he was going to break through. We were 9 people initially, said the old poisonous monster suddenly. He looked evil. Qin Yi and Bai Yu's maid had come back, but Lin Feng hadn't. The memories of an entire life were precious. The old poisonous monster looked at Bai Yu's maid and Qin Yi slyly. Everybody knew what he wanted. Share the memories you obtained, said the old poisonous monster. The memories of those lives were priceless. Qin Yi was stupefied. He said, if everybody wants to share, I don't mind sharing. Yes, just share yours first with everyone, said the old poisonous monster. Qin Yi pulled a long face. That bastard wanted to force him, but it didn't look good. Those people all had the same thoughts. Everybody was staring at him. All right, said Qin Yi, his face stiff. All those people could easily kill him. He felt humiliated, but he had no choice. Qin Yi shared the memories of the life he had experienced with everybody else. However, it wasn't the same as when the king had absorbed their souls to make them experience the lives. It was a different sensation. It felt less real, but it was still very beneficial. At that moment, the ox arrived. Even though he tried to walk lightly, he made the ground shake. Uncle Ox. Qinghai's rock greeted him. All right, the ox nodded and looked at everybody. You managed to come here, you have incredible fighting abilities. Now, you've had the experience to experience new lives. You will all become stronger. Do you want to go to the Bestial Memorial Pagoda to test your strength, and see if you're eligible to become Fighting Phantom Protectors? What is the Bestial Memorial Pagoda, and what are Fighting Phantom Protectors? Asked Heezy's Maharaga. The Bestial Memorial Pagoda is a place you can enter and exit freely. You use a fake body to enter that place, and you can compete with all the other strong cultivators. That way, no risk of dying. You can even disguise yourselves within, nobody will know it's you. Regarding Fighting Phantom Protectors, you know what Fighting Phantoms are. Fighting Phantom Protectors protect Fighting Phantoms. All the ministers have to acknowledge you for you to become one. Where's the Bestial Memorial Pagoda? Asked Qinghai's rock. Every territory has an entrance to the Bestial Memorial Pagoda. Your father is in charge of this place. The entrance to the Bestial Memorial Pagoda is here, in the Great Rock Castle, Uncle Ox replied. Good. I wanted to see how strong the others here are, said Zishu's Flood Dragon, standing up. They followed the ox and headed to the Bestial Memorial Pagoda. At that moment, Lin Feng was coming back to that place. After asking around, he realized that this world was even stricter than the world of humans. Everything was strictly organized. Everything was logged in journals, too. If Lin Feng was here, it meant he was strong enough to live here. Lin Feng was assigned a residence. The king of the 10,000 beasts was really a terrifying cultivator, but he was also an excellent manager. It also meant that he had a vision for the future. Lin Feng didn't go out for some time. He started meditating in seclusion. Even though the lives he had experienced weren't his, they were useful, and he could learn many things from them. He had seen many cultivators' spells, skills, and techniques in them. His clone was also studying in the Fortune Shrine. The Devamara Kulpa strength cleansed Lin Feng's body again. He didn't break through. Each wave of Devamara Kulpa strength was, as usual, stronger than the previous one. Each time the Devamara Kulpa strength cleansed Lin Feng's body, he used his Devamara body cleansing technique twice. That way, his physical strength kept increasing. Even if he couldn't break through, he was already much stronger than many great emperors in terms of physical strength. After some time, Lin Feng stopped meditating in seclusion and came out. He walked out into the middle of all those palaces. Next to him was a beautiful woman, Lu Fei. At that moment, Lu Fei was smiling gently. It was the first time Lin Feng had taken her out of Shuiyu. "Lin Feng, where are we?" asked Lu Fei. She was astonished. There were so many terrifyingly strong beasts everywhere. A powerful animal world called the King of the 10,000 Beasts territory. It's very well organized here. Better organized than the world of humans, replied Lin Feng. He didn't spend much time with her, therefore he wanted to have a walk with her. She wasn't weak either, and she was extremely bored in Shuiyu. After all, Lin Feng's world wasn't developed at all. "These beasts are extremely strong. Are they all imperial beasts?" asked Lu Fei, firmly holding Lin Feng's hand. She felt nervous here. "Yes, at least. They're really strong, and there are also many great imperial beasts," explained Lin Feng. Lu Fei didn't know what to say. She didn't even know how strong Lin Feng had become. However, Lin Feng felt guilty because if she hadn't gotten married with him, she would have had a more peaceful life. He owed her. He rarely spent time with her, and rarely went to Shuiyu. Lu Fei was holding Lin Feng's arm tightly. They arrived on a beautiful and vast road. There were many vendors' booths there, selling all sorts of precious items. The King of the 10,000 Beasts world was well organized, but nevertheless, many beasts died regularly, including extremely strong ones, because others wanted to steal their items. "How beautiful!" Lu Fei saw a Taoist robe made of peacock feathers with 7 colors. The woman who was wearing it was extremely beautiful. She looked elegant and free of vulgarity. "How is it?" the woman asked a young man next to her. She kept pivoting to show him her robe, beaming happily. "So beautiful," said the young man with a smile. He looked at the vendor and asked, "How much?" "Level 3 Great Imperial Weapon, that'd be enough," said the vendor smiling. "Level 3 Great Imperial Weapon," whispered Lu Fei, gaping slightly. The woman wearing the cape looked at Lu Fei in a proud and arrogant way. That woman was wondering what a weak cultivator like Lu Fei was doing here. Lin Feng walked forwards and looked at the vendor. "Do you have the same Taoist robe made of feathers? I can pay a level 3 Great Imperial Weapon." The vendor smiled neutrally and shook his head without saying anything. Such clothes have to be tailor-made. Otherwise, they'd be worthless. Who would want to wear the same clothes as other people? "Besides, level 3 Great Imperial Weapon?" said the woman, glancing at Lin Feng disdainfully. "Not everybody could pay a level 3 Great Imperial Weapon for clothes. If you agree, I am willing to give you a level 4 Great Imperial Weapon," said Lin Feng. He knew Lu Fei liked it. He kept calm, talking gently, even if this woman was making fun of him. The woman was surprised, staring at Lin Feng, and said, "Look at yourself." Then she turned around, dragging the young man next to her, and left. The young man glanced at Lin Feng with a flat smile. He looked proud and arrogant too. "Lin Feng, I'm sorry," said Lu Fei. She felt guilty. She felt like she had made a fuss about nothing. "I'm sorry. So many years, I've been trying to solve as many things as possible, and I didn't take good care of you. I messed up," said Lin Feng, caressing Lu Fei's cheeks. He felt guilty. At that moment, the vendor said, "That's the 7 Feathers Prince. According to rumors, he has been selected by the Fighting Phantom Protectors to become one. If a Fighting Phantom emerges, he'll probably become a protector. He has a very high social status. Surprisingly, you wanted to obtain his item." The vendor shook his head. In his eyes, Lin Feng had overestimated himself. Chapter 2254. Bestial Memorial Pagoda. Lin Feng looked at the 2 people leaving in the distance and said, I've heard about fighting phantoms only. I've heard that one fighting phantom emerges every 1,000 years, or even more. What do fighting phantom protectors do? What is their role? You haven't been here for very long. Even if there is no fighting phantom, we need protectors for our territories. Some people can be selected in advance, and then when a fighting phantom appears, some people can become fighting phantom protectors. The Seven Feathers Prince has already publicly announced his identity in the Bestial Memorial Pagoda, and he's had incredible results. Not many people can defeat him. Bestial Memorial Pagoda? Lin Feng looked surprised. Yes, the Bestial Memorial Pagoda is one of the most important places in the King of the 10,000 Beasts territory. Everybody can go there, and if they want, they can hide their real identity to fight against everyone else and see how strong they are. Every territory has an entrance to the Bestial Memorial Pagoda, said the vendor. Thank you for your time, said Lin Feng, smiling and nodding, before leaving with Lu Fei. Lin Feng enjoyed the feeling of her warm hand in his. He smiled and said, Fei, do you want anything else? No. Taking a walk is enough, said Lu Fei. She had gradually gotten used to the environment here. Things became more natural for her. Lin Feng nodded and they continued walking around. Sometimes he found some small things which he thought she'd like, and he bought them for her. The Bestial Memorial Pagoda's entrance was in the Great Rock Palace. Actually, the entrance was a gigantic place, with many vaults. There were dazzling lights in the vaults, where many people were seated alone and motionless. Are those void entrances? Murmured Lin Feng. He walked forwards and arrived in front of a vault. He went under it and sat down in the light. He closed his eyes and suddenly, a terrifying strength drew him in. Lin Feng felt as light as a feather as he ended up somewhere else. What? How strange, thought Lin Feng. He looked down at his body. His real body was probably outside, but the body made of consciousness he had in here didn't feel different at all. So many cloaks, armors and masks, thought Lin Feng, glancing around. Were those things there for them to hide their identity? Lin Feng put on a black cloak and a black mask. His body was suddenly surrounded by an illusion. How strange, murmured Lin Feng happily. His silhouette flickered and he left that hall. After a short time, he met someone. That person looked strong. He was a great emperor. Even emperors dare come in here? That person was wearing a tiger mask and sounded icy. The Bestial Memorial Pagoda was divided into different floors. The first floor was for emperors, the second floor was for great emperors, the third floor was for celestial emperors. Lin Feng was on the second floor, the floor for great emperors. Celestial emperors couldn't go to the second or first floors, but the opposite was possible. Emperors could go to the second and third floors, but great emperors couldn't go to the first floor. That cultivator jumped ahead with a rumble of rising power. A massive strength surrounded Lin Feng and oppressed him. The cultivator roared, suddenly turning into a gigantic lion. The ground cracked under his paws. Lin Feng's soul was trembling. Piss off. A gigantic hand moved towards Lin Feng. The lion looked at him disdainfully. In his eyes, an emperor had no business here. A terrifying sound suddenly filled the air. It contained cursing strength and reverberated everywhere. The lion's intent started shaking. Lin Feng's fist was filled with terrifying demon lights. Rumbling sounds spread out, and the ground exploded under their feet as their energies met. The beast roared furiously. How dare an emperor come there? He wanted to crush Lin Feng's hand. Piss off, shouted the lion. The lion was a bit careless, but Lin Feng had gotten ready. He shouted, and cursing strength made the lion tremble. At the same time, he released sword strength, which shot towards his opponent's head. His consciousness broke apart, and he disappeared from there. When Lin Feng saw his opponent disappear, he didn't look satisfied. Even if his opponent was a great imperial beast, he wasn't as strong as Qin Hai's rock and the others. He was at most as strong as Qin. He had also been careless, so Lin Feng had crushed him. This place is incredible. My consciousness is like my body in here. I wonder how the king of the 10,000 beasts made this place. It's good to practice and people don't die for real here, thought Lin Feng with a sigh. In a hall outside, the cultivator Lin Feng had defeated appeared, still wearing his tiger mask. Many people looked at him and laughed. "Hi, he crushed you?" "It was strange, so strange," said that person in annoyance. "I was too careless. But I will find him." He got ready to go back inside. "You're acting recklessly," said all the beasts, laughing at him. Bai Yu and the others were also inside the bestial memorial pagoda. Hezi's Maharaga was extremely strong. At that moment, he was devouring someone entirely. The person kept shrieking madly. Hezi's Maharaga was uncaring. Even if his opponent didn't really die, he liked doing that to them. When they came out, they had a really bad memory. In another place, the Seven Feathers Prince was wearing a feather robe with 7 colors. Even if he was wearing a mask, people knew who he was, and many people fled, not wanting to fight against him. Next to him was a mysterious silhouette, looking graceful and swift. But considering her silhouette, she was probably a banshee. Her eyes looked cunning and evil. "Everybody is avoiding you, it mustn't be fun," the woman smiled. The Seven Feathers Prince replied, "I'm behind you. You try." "All right," the woman nodded. They were both hunting for prey. After a short time, the woman's eyes gleamed. She saw an emperor. Was he a human or a beast? After all, there were mostly beasts in there, but sometimes there were humans too. "Good boy." An emperor on the 2nd floor. "What kind of place does he think the bestial memorial pagoda is?" The woman giggled. She stalked forwards gracefully, like a snake in the water. Lin Feng saw that woman, and he also saw the Seven Feathers Prince behind her. He had already seen these two at the market. Coincidence? The Seven Feathers Prince has the potential to become a fighting phantom protector. I'll see how strong he is. It's a perfect opportunity. A silhouette moved gracefully, wearing a gigantic snake mask. Lin Feng and the others could clearly sense their evil qi, however. When people turned around, including Lin Feng, they sensed the evil energies even more clearly. That person was extremely dangerous. Lin Feng recognized those eyes and that qi. It was the old poisonous monster. Perfect, he wanted to see how strong he was. He would be able to see how strong all those cultivators were. But at that moment, the old poisonous monster and the Seven Feathers Prince weren't interested in Lin Feng at all. The banshee had dark green eyes and was staring at Lin Feng. It was like she was trying to bewitch him. Chapter 2255. Continuous battles. Lin Feng was determined, wise, and persistent. Even if the woman was a great emperor, it was not effective against him. A giggle resonated in Lin Feng's brain. He saw many silhouettes of dancing women, slim and beautiful. They were getting closer and closer to him. How not to have lusty thoughts when seeing such beautiful women? Lin Feng's heart sped up. The illusion looked so real. Lin Feng ground his teeth. His eyes became pitch black. He broke the illusion and came back to his senses. However, a beautiful woman was still walking towards him. Was he unable to stop the illusion? "Piss off," said Lin Feng. He raised his fist and bombarded the illusion. It broke apart. Lin Feng grunted coldly. That illusion was powerful and looked so real. A gentle breeze brushed against him. Lin Feng felt unsafe. Illusionary beautiful women appeared all around him again, slowly taking off their clothes, their snowy white skin appearing. They looked extremely arousing. What an incredible temptation, Dao, thought Lin Feng. Suddenly, the women turned into snakes and opened their mouths wide open, lunging towards him. Lin Feng was standing in the middle of all the snakes. He had the impression he was going to be devoured alive and sleep forever. Wisdom Kings appeared in Lin Feng's brain. How could he sink into temptation with Wisdom Kings? His eyes shone darkly. He released sword energies and sliced apart the snakes. At the same time, he moved towards one of them. The snake woman's face stiffened. How could he recognize her real body? Lin Feng could see through the illusion. His eyes were filled with death stamps. Dao's strength surged out, and the woman's face changed drastically. Lin Feng broke the illusion and attacked using death intent. He was too close to her, she couldn't block him. A strong wind started blowing. The woman turned around and looked to the Seven Feathers Prince. His face stiffened, and he suddenly moved forwards and shouted explosively, "Stop!" However, it was useless. Lin Feng smashed her with his fist. She screamed loudly as she was hurled back into the main hall and exploded. The woman suddenly opened her eyes. She was back under her vault. Her chest kept heaving for breath. Her face was deathly pale. "Bastard, I will kill you!" shouted the woman furiously. She went back into the bestial memorial pagoda, to the place where Lin Feng had crushed her. The Seven Feathers Prince was staring at Lin Feng, his chi released. Lin Feng dared attack women like that? And he was a mere emperor. "You want to bring about your own destruction," said the Seven Feathers Prince coldly. Razored wings suddenly appeared in his hands and shot towards Lin Feng. In reply, a terrifying river appeared and surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng suddenly rose up into the air. Some feathers fell from the sky. Black lights appeared and fissures appeared in the air. "The Seven Feathers Prince, are all those feathers special spells?" wondered Lin Feng. Very quickly, a third feather cut towards Lin Feng from behind. Claws suddenly appeared and lunged towards him. Lin Feng didn't flinch. He raised his empowered fist and smashed the claws. As he destroyed them, a gigantic hawk swooped towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng released sword intent. The Seven Feathers Prince threw his last feather, and Lin Feng had the sensation dark assassin's claws were reaching for him. It wasn't only a physical attack, it was also a soul attack. Lin Feng had to be extremely cautious. When Lin Feng saw that, he released as much sword intent as he could and his 9 ancient words started floating around him. Terrifying lights filled the air. A bell sounded off as the energies moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng started punching out repeatedly. Everything in front of him seemed to explode. The Seven Feathers Prince threw himself at Lin Feng. He raised his hands. The atmosphere around him crackled. Lin Feng's physical strength was incredible, but against such an attack, he had the impression he was going to be cut apart. It was extremely dangerous. "Die!" shouted the Seven Feathers Prince furiously. His 7 wings descended from the sky, like 7 sharp swords. Lin Feng grunted. His face was a bit pale. What a powerful attack. With such attacks, he could even destroy great emperors. Lin Feng shouted out, and his 9 words resonated with the cosmos. He charged at the Seven Feathers Prince. "He's not dying after all this?" The Seven Feathers Prince hadn't thought that Lin Feng wouldn't die. He was just an emperor. The prince looked angry. He raised his hands, and more claws shot towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng ignored the attacks, moving towards the prince. He looked like a brutal and violent beast. He cast his celestial stage deployment spell, adding in a soundwave deployment spell which oppressed the prince. The atmosphere kept trembling. The Seven Feathers Prince's attack exploded, but he continued punching out in Lin Feng's direction. At the same time, deployment lights made of empty space cosmic energies appeared around him. "Kill!" shouted the Seven Feathers Prince, releasing his 7 wings again. They turned into several beasts which looked like sharp swords. Fissures appeared in the air around them. Lin Feng disappeared and reappeared higher up in the air. Many black holes appeared in the air and descended towards the Seven Feathers Prince. "Die, die!" The Seven Feathers Prince felt oppressed. Lin Feng was using his terrifying Nihility Death Sword. The atmosphere around him was filled with death strength. His silhouette flickered as he flapped his wings. Lin Feng disappeared and reappeared again, blocking him. He shouted furiously and released more strength which penetrated into the prince's body. He raised his fists too and punched out in the prince's direction. It contained a terrifying amount of strength and cosmic energies. The Seven Feathers Prince's face stiffened. Maximum level death Dao. He could kill great emperors of the top of the Di-Chi layer with such attacks. He didn't want to fight anymore, but Lin Feng prevented him from leaving, so he could only block the attacks. The Seven Feathers Prince didn't want to fight anymore, and wanted to escape from a cultivator of the Huang Chi layer. Lin Feng watched him as he fled. Lin Feng didn't chase him. He could defeat him, but he couldn't kill him easily. When Heezi's Maharaja saw the Seven Feathers Prince escape, he stared at Lin Feng. That guy's attacks were scary, but also, that guy's style looked like the style of the guy who had come with them, who was also an emperor. When Lin Feng was with them, he hadn't thought Lin Feng looked that strong. Now this guy in front of him also controlled death strength, but it couldn't be the same, it had to be a coincidence. But an emperor with such incredible fighting abilities, that was surprising. Heh, what a strong guy, said Heezy's Maharaga, spitting out poison. Lin Feng turned to stare at him. He felt like battling. Death strength surrounded him like poison did the Maharaga. I have someone to fight against, it seems, said Heezy's Maharaga, spitting out more poison. His poison surrounded Lin Feng. That poison was thick, it wasn't too liquid. Lin Feng suddenly jumped forwards. However, poison stuck to his clothes and it penetrated into his organs. It contained a toxin which slowed Lin Feng down. Poison also emerged from the Maharaga's eyes. He controlled Dao power. This kind of fighter could paralyze enemies in battles. It could stop someone's blood, even if they had a powerful heart. Vital organs could stop functioning because of the poison, too. It could even paralyze someone's soul. Lin Feng's strong blood was boiling. He kept releasing life energy into it. At the same time, he oppressed the strength which was flowing in his body. He wanted to purge the poison. At the same time, he also released death strength which also started flowing through his opponent's body. The Maharaga opened his mouth wide and spat out a thick and yellowish poison. Lin Feng couldn't dodge, the poison was definitely going to reach him, so Lin Feng had no choice. He jumped forwards and got closer to the Maharaga. However, the old poisonous monster didn't care. He looked at Lin Feng and reopened his mouth widely. His mouth was now dozens of meters wide. He wanted to devour Lin Feng alive. His poison was extremely powerful, and if he managed to devour Lin Feng, the poison would dissolve his body. That's how he had become so big. He had devoured many people in his life. Chapter 2256, God of Hell's name. Lin Feng was staring at his opponent. The Maharaga's gigantic teeth were yellowish and green. Poison stuck to his palate, gums, and teeth. Lin Feng found the smell horrible. On top of that, even if the Maharaga didn't devour him entirely and dissolved him with poison, he could also bite him. It would be enough to kill him. Lin Feng released dazzling Holy Spirit swords and attacked his opponent's teeth. His silhouette flickered. The old poisonous monster snapped his mouth shut. Lin Feng heard some snorting sounds as green poison splashed. The old poisonous monster looked at Lin Feng, pulling a long face. The Maharaga started transforming, growing to thousands of meters long. He looked as mighty as a dragon. His chi was evil and ice-cold. The air darkened around them. Lin Feng looked at the gigantic Maharaga, acknowledging his strength. His poison chi was deadly. No wonder so many people feared him. Back in the 8 great imperial animal cities, all the great emperors were scared of him. Lin Feng summoned thousands of holy spirits. Some of them turned into sky-absorbing holy spirits, some others into death holy spirits, some others into 9 netherworlds holy spirits, some of them into wisdom king holy spirits. Holy spirits appeared everywhere. Lin Feng's holy spirits were much more powerful than in the past. Even though he could summon great holy spirits now, his holy spirits were still deadly. The gigantic Maharaga spat out poison again and moved towards Lin Feng. The Maharaga was gigantic, but he was also very fast. He arrived in front of Lin Feng, trying to constrict him. Die! An incredible amount of holy spirits moved towards him, and ancient chi filled the air around them. 9 words floated around Lin Feng. He condensed the energies of the 10,000 things of creation, and they surrounded the Maharaga. Lin Feng also released some terrifying sword chi. The Maharaga was resistant. It wasn't easy to defeat him. Lin Feng released sky-absorbing strength and condensed cosmic energies. He raised his fist and condensed cosmic energies in his fist as well. Terrifying black lightning fire appeared in his fist, and it also contained sword strength. Deployment lights started intertwining in front of him. He was staring at the Maharaga. The Maharaga roared defiantly, facing a terrifying attack. Lin Feng disappeared, reappearing in front of the Maharaga. The old poisonous monster roared furiously. When he saw that Lin Feng dared come closer, he opened his mouth widely again, trying to bite Lin Feng with his poison teeth. However, Lin Feng was too fast and went down his throat. It smelled horrible, there was poison everywhere. However, Lin Feng was so fast, the Maharaja had no time to dissolve Lin Feng's body. The Maharaja's face stiffened. Lin Feng kept attacking from inside his body. Killing energies kept exploding out, and his body was blasted open from within. Lin Feng reappeared, soaked in terrifying poison. Lin Feng released life strength to counter it, but still, it felt extremely unpleasant. "Forget it. I'm out too," said Lin Feng. After a short time, he returned to his body. When he reappeared there, the old poisonous monster was shouting and roaring in a thundering rage. He wasn't far from Lin Feng. "Who?" shouted the Maharaja furiously. An emperor had crushed him and hurled him out of the fighting area. An emperor. How could that emperor be so strong? How had he managed to pierce through his body from the inside? His body was filled with poison. "Old poisonous monster, what are you shouting for? Were you killed inside?" asked Qinghai's rock coldly. The old poisonous monster stared at Qinghai's rock. He just grunted coldly. The bestial memorial pagoda is really mysterious. It can condense people's consciousness inside, and yet people have the impression everything is real. "Did you get killed, old poisonous monster?" asked Qinghai's rock. The old poisonous monster shouted furiously. "If you want to try, go inside and let's agree on a place to fight." "Is that so? You were defeated and now you want to release your anger on me? But with your speed, can you even reach me?" queried Qinghai's rock coldly. "Let's go to Celestial Protection City and fight in the sky above." "All right," said the old poisonous monster coldly. Many people looked excited. They wanted to watch battles. Lin Feng didn't go to watch them though, he just left the place. He continued going to the bestial memorial pagoda regularly. Very quickly, a certain god of hell became very famous. Many who had been defeated by Lin Feng called him that, or death god. Many people couldn't stand his death strength. Some people said that he had never lost. The rumors also said that the Seven Feathers Prince had been defeated by the god of hell, that he had killed him in the pagoda back then. His reputation was increasing each day. Black robe, black mask. Everywhere he went, people died. Many people started paying attention to him. Lin Feng re-entered the bestial memorial pagoda. He was at the top of a castle, his black cloak fluttering in the wind. He wanted to try attacks he had created and see if how strong he had become. He was waiting for the next time he was cleansed by Devamara Kalpa strength. He had plans. In the distance, people saw him, but they didn't get close. Bai Yu was in the crowd. Lin Feng could recognize her, as she was wearing white clothes and had a great figure, and he could also recognize her chi. God of hell, back then he defeated the old poisonous monster. His death chi is terrifying. Is he really only a cultivator of the top of the Huang Qi layer? Thought Bai Yu. His death strength had reached perfection, and he could defeat great emperors at the top of the Di Qi layer. It was incredible. She couldn't believe that a cultivator of the top of the Huang Qi layer could defeat someone like the old poisonous monster. She had met some incredible emperors in her life, but they had never been so terrifying. The old poisonous monster and the others could easily kill those people. At that moment, the god of hell's body became illusionary and he disappeared. He left the bestial memorial pagoda. Bai Yu closed her eyes and left as well. In the pagoda, a moment before, Bai Yu had seen that the god of hell had killed a few people. She still remembered the battles. She left the palace, but looked absent-minded and preoccupied. "Miss Bai," said someone at that moment. Bai Yu turned around and saw Lin Feng. "What are you doing here? Where did you go after leaving the city?" asked Bai Yu. "I came back a while ago. I've seen you a few times. But in the pagoda, you don't have time to talk to me," said Lin Feng, smiling thinly. The pagoda was a nice place for another reason, as people could practice without worrying about dying or lasting harm. After that, Lin Feng left alone. After Lin Feng left, someone came up to Bai Yu. "Why didn't you keep him here?" Bai Yu turned around and looked at Heezi's Maharaja. "Why would I?" He received the memories of a life too. Lives are precious treasures. I just need one more life and I'll break through. Even if you don't want the memories, I want them, said the old poisonous monster, evilly staring after Lin Feng. After he left, he brought out Qiu Yuexin. After breaking her Dao, Qiu Yuexin had spent some time in his spirit's world. She had given up Dao. Now, she was happy as long as she was at Lin Feng's side. Qiu Yuexin was much calmer than Lu Fei. She had gone through much more in life and was less excitable. They were on a bridge and looking at the sun. It was beautiful. Is that sun fake? It's so beautiful though, murmured Qiu Yuexin with a smile. Who cares? Life is like a dream anyway. We don't need everything to be real to enjoy ourselves, replied Lin Feng lazily. That guy knows how to talk to women, interrupted a voice coldly. Lin Feng turned around and saw the Seven Feathers Prince and that woman. He's stronger than you though, said that woman, when she saw how beautiful Qiu Yuexin was. She smiled at the Seven Feathers Prince. You're bewitching enough, said the Seven Feathers Prince indifferently. He glanced at Lin Feng and the others around. The pair passed next to Lin Feng and Qiu Yuexin, disdaining them. Lin Feng likewise ignored them. His eyes were pitch black. He smiled broadly and dark clouds condensed in the sky above them. Go! Lin Feng said to Qiu Yuexin, and their silhouettes flickered, vanishing into the wind. The Seven Feathers Prince and the woman who weren't that far away suddenly turned around and frowned. Lin Feng and the woman had suddenly disappeared. Chapter 2257. The one who wants to become a fighting phantom. Time passed. In each territory of the king of the 10,000 beasts world, there was a gigantic martial arts stage. Above the martial arts stage, there was always a gigantic mirror. Those mirrors were called 10,000 beasts mirrors, and they could illuminate the whole territory. In the Great Rock territory, there were many people going to that place, looking solemn and respectful. No battle had occurred on the martial arts stage for a very long time. Only the strongest beasts fought on those martial arts stages. Bai Yu, Qinghai's Rock, Heezy's Maharaga, and the others were there too. Minister Rock had made them become fighting phantom protectors because they were extremely strong. However, they would need a very long time before becoming fighting phantoms. However, they were tough opponents, and there were many other geniuses in every territory. Unfortunately, I will brush past that opportunity, said the old poisonous monster, staring at the mirror. Icy lights appeared in his eyes. Dinuo, dark golden-pupiled king, Zishu's flood dragon, do you want to try? They all remained silent. They were self-confident, but they knew they weren't strong enough for that. Apart from them, many people around were also staring at the mirror. They saw someone else arrive, someone they knew. It's him! Bai Yu looked stupefied. Heezy's Maharaga looked at that person greedily. He hadn't forgotten about the memories. Little boy, stop, said the old poisonous monster when he saw Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked over at them, seeing Bai Yu and the others. He nodded at them. Last time, you also experienced a life, right? The old poisonous monster asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at him calmly and nodded. Since it's that way, share the memories with us, said the old poisonous monster calmly, as if he had said something ordinary. Lin Feng looked at him for a few seconds, but then ignored him. He glanced at the others. They remained silent, just looking at him as if they agreed with the old poisonous monster. Lin Feng smiled thinly and continued walking on. The old poisonous monster looked surprised. That boy dared ignore them? I told you to stop, said the old poisonous monster coldly. Lin Feng continued ignoring him though, and kept walking forwards. The old poisonous monster pulled a long face. There's something wrong. Where is he going? Asked Bai Yu. She was stunned. Lin Feng continued walking, towards the martial arts stage. He was going under the 10,000 beasts mirror. Impossible. He wants to die. Thought Bai Yu. She couldn't believe it. Lin Feng was definitely going to stop. At that moment, Qinghai's Rock also realized something was wrong. Lin Feng went under the mirror. Was he insane? They all frowned. Lin Feng stopped at the foot of the martial arts stage, and they all took a deep breath. As expected, he wasn't insane. How could they even think he wanted to get onto the battle stage? And then, Lin Feng rose up into the air and then landed on the martial arts stage. Bai Yu was astonished. People around were astonished. The 10,000 Beasts mirror illuminated Lin Feng. "You're insane," Bai shouted at Lin Feng. "Let him die," said Heezy's Maharaga, smiling coldly. Lin Feng was acting recklessly. However, Lin Feng didn't care about what they were saying. He raised his head and looked at the mirror. He said calmly, "I announce I'd like to become a fighting phantom." When he said that, the mirror illuminated the whole territory. Dazzling lights flashed everywhere. Everywhere in that world, people raised their heads and saw a silhouette on a martial arts stage. He was publicly proclaiming, "I announce I'd like to become a fighting phantom." The Seven Feathers Prince raised his head. The woman next to him raised her head. Their faces stiffened. The fool they had met at the market? They frowned. He was making a public announcement. "He wants to die," said the Seven Feathers Prince coldly. Lin Feng jumped off the stage. He was illuminated by lights. They were following him. It wasn't a secret anymore. Everybody knew what he intended now. 7 days from now, he would welcome anyone, and he would fight. It would be a massacre. 7 days from now, he would fight against the world. He would then need to resist them for 3 months. If he succeeded, he'd become a fighting phantom. Lin Feng left the martial arts stage. Bai Yu's mouth was wide open as she stared at Lin Feng. She didn't recognize him anymore. It was as if she had met him for the first time at that moment. Fighting phantom? Heezy's Maharaga smiled coldly. He spat glossy green poison onto the ground. Qin Hai's rock opened his wings, streaked across the sky and landed in front of Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng ignored him and continued walking calmly. Qin Hai's rock was flying above Lin Feng. It was as if he could attack any time. "Shouldn't you transmit your memories to me before I kill you?" said Heezy's Maharaga, who was following too. To him, Lin Feng was already dead. Anywhere Lin Feng would go, the mirror would follow him. Lin Feng went back to his residence and closed his eyes, calmly waiting. During those 7 days, many people came to find him. This guy wanted to become a fighting phantom? Finally, 7 days passed, and a gong clanged loudly. The palace in which Lin Feng was living was broken down by many beasts. They had been waiting for this day impatiently. Finally, it was time. A silhouette slowly rose up in the air. He was wearing a black robe. His eyes were pitch black. He looked cold and grim. Many people were astonished. That guy's costume was too familiar. God of Hell. Bai Yu looked at Lin Feng, her face stiff, and said, "He's the God of Hell." Heezy's Maharaga's face was hilarious. Back then, he had been crushed by the God of Hell. The Seven Feathers Prince and the Banshee raised their heads and saw a black cloak fluttering in the wind. "It's him." The Banshee's face turned deathly pale. The Seven Feathers Prince pulled a long face. He had escaped back then when he was fighting against Lin Feng. "Isn't he the one you saw last time? Why are you surprised?" The street vendor asked the Seven Feathers Prince. He had recognized Lin Feng. Why was the Seven Feathers Prince surprised? "He's the God of Hell. The Bestial Memorial Pagoda's God of Hell," said someone next to them. The vendor's face was funny. He looked at the Seven Feathers Prince's face. So, the rumors were true. The street vendor remembered what he had said to Lin Feng back then, and laughed at himself mockingly. A fighting phantom protector. So what? Lin Feng wanted to become a fighting phantom. He had made a public announcement. A beast moved towards Lin Feng, lightning quick. Lin Feng wanted to become a fighting phantom? He could dream on. That beast looked as sharp as a sword. However, Lin Feng raised his hand and grabbed the beast's claws. Then he raised his other fist. It was sharper than that beast's claws. A terrifyingly sharp demon fist smashed into the beast. The beast gave a horrible shriek and exploded. Blood splashed everywhere. Lin Feng stood there. He looked apathetic, like a God of Hell. From that moment on, anyone could kill him and he could kill anyone. The first person who attacked him died in brutally and atrociously, and was a great imperial beast. Everybody in that world had seen that clearly. The Bestial Memorial Pagoda's God of Hell was terrifyingly strong. If anyone wanted to kill him, they had to get ready to die first. As expected, after the first one died, many people who had gotten ready to attack didn't attack in the end. They were shaking and stunned. People who wanted to become fighting phantoms were extremely strong. He had crushed the first great imperial beast in one punch. Chapter 2258. Death God Lin Feng stood there and waited. Everybody could see him clearly in the whole king of the 10,000 beasts world. He wanted to become a fighting phantom, so he was in everybody's field of vision. It was a cruel challenge, and he had to pass it. Many people had tried to become fighting phantoms in the past, and some of them had been crushed badly. However, that young man in black clothes was the first one ever who wanted to attempt becoming a fighting phantom with the strength of the Huangqi layer. It astonished everyone. The air began to hum. Many beasts moved towards Lin Feng. They all wanted to crush Lin Feng's soul. However, Lin Feng remained there motionless. He steadfastly stood his ground. A strong wind started blowing. A gigantic creature descended from the sky and moved towards Lin Feng. It wanted to peck at Lin Feng. Lin Feng released death stamps. A pitch-black beam of light emerged and dashed to the skies. Lin Feng's eyes were dazzling and filled with death strength. He shouted furiously, "Die!" Death Chi turned into a beam of light and shot towards the beast as Death Chi surrounded it. Its life was being corroded, giving it the impression it could die anytime. Lin Feng's cosmic energies had become much stronger, and they became stronger and stronger each day. His death cosmic energies were deadly, and coupled with Tao, terrifying. Beams of light kept emerging from Lin Feng's eyes. He kept punching out using ancient holy punches. The air thundered, and the gigantic beast exploded. It started raining blood again. Blood splashed at Lin Feng's face. His death strength dispersed as another great imperial beast's corpse fell from the sky. Even the beasts who had gotten ready to attack Lin Feng were surrounded by death strength. They were staring at Lin Feng coldly. He was truly intimidating. They weren't sure they could defeat him. How strong? Bai Yu looked at Lin Feng, found herself shaking. Lin Feng had come here with them. Back then, he was calm and discreet. His chi wasn't too powerful. She had never thought he could be so strong. How could he be the god of hell, a death god? Each time he attacked, he killed. The old poisonous monster was also staring at Lin Feng. Back in the bestial memorial pagoda, he had lost against him. Now, he had the impression that Lin Feng had become even stronger. At that moment, they all looked pensive. Lin Feng moved, and each time he moved, he turned into a beam of light. His wind and empty space cosmic energies were terrifying. He also had wings. Each time he took a step, he could travel incredible distances. Lin Feng's attacks were dazzling and magnificent. He used the most aggressive attacks he could when he punched. He condensed demon Kulpa lights in his fist and punched a great imperial beast. This last time when he had been cleansed by Devamara Kulpa strength, he had used his Devamara body cleansing technique thrice. His physical strength was terrifying. With Lin Feng's physical strength, nobody could compete with him anymore. Beasts had a greater physical strength than humans, and their physical attacks were often formidable. However, when Lin Feng threw himself at a great imperial beast, he turned into a beam of light and pierced through his body. Those watching were trembling when they saw such attacks. People heard a melody start up, and Lin Feng's demon strength became even stronger. The source of the 9 netherworlds appeared all around him. Demon chi filled the air and spread far away. Everybody heard the demonic melody. Oh no, the 9 netherworlds' demonic song can influence people's intent and turn them into demon puppets. Lin Feng pointed at a person. The 9 netherworlds' lights penetrated into his body. He turned black, and his intent shook violently. His eyes turned pitch black and glittered. He roared furiously, before running away in a frenzy. Lin Feng was standing before the source of the 9 netherworlds. He said indifferently, "Who wants to kill me?" He sounded calm and steeled, totally self-confident. His physical strength, soul, and intent were incredible, and he had experienced the king's lives. He had become stronger, and even more determined. When he used his 9 netherworlds demonic song, his demon type's attacks were even more powerful and effective. Many beasts had the impression they were falling asleep. The demon energies didn't just corrode their lives, it also made them tired. I saw something, a dream, the king of the 10,000 beasts' life, mumbled a beast. He started dreaming, he could see the beast king's life. It's the king of the 10,000 beasts. It's one of his lives. He wants me to understand something? Whispered another beast. Some beasts were determined and struggled. They knew it was a dream. Lin Feng had created dreams for them, and put the dream energies into the demon strength. People were falling asleep without paying attention. Many strong cultivators far away raised their heads and said, "Interesting, I need to go this time." Many extremely strong beasts hadn't come, but now they had seen how strong Lin Feng was, so they were getting ready to go and fight against Lin Feng. They were definitely going to kill him before he had time to become a fighting phantom. They wanted to show Lin Feng that to become a fighting phantom, he had to be ready to risk his life, and maybe even die. But only the strongest beasts thought that way, the others were just astonished. Lin Feng was just too strong. Killing him would be too difficult. Weaker beasts were thinking that if Lin Feng got badly injured, they'd finish him, otherwise, they wouldn't have the opportunity to kill him. The Seven Feathers Prince was shaking in astonishment. He had lost against Lin Feng once, and he wouldn't have an opportunity this time either. I've heard that the god of hell defeated the Seven Feathers Prince in the Bestial Memorial Pagoda, and the Seven Feathers Prince wants to become a fighting phantom protector. The god of hell is so strong that he could beat a fighting phantom protector. If the god of hell becomes a fighting phantom, then the Seven Feathers Prince will be his protector for millions of years. Some people who didn't know the Seven Feathers Prince said that. The Seven Feathers Prince heard that, he was furious because his woman was next to him. Her beautiful eyes were gleaming. She remembered what she had told Lin Feng back then. Look at yourself, she felt ridiculous. Lin Feng had just ignored her because he didn't feel like talking to people like her. In the sky, the mirror was still displaying everything. The great imperial beasts who attacked were getting stronger and stronger. However, when they attacked, the 9 netherworld strength kept piercing through their bodies, and death stamps assaulted them. In a short time, a few more corpses appeared on the ground. Lin Feng killed all his opponents mercilessly. He had no choice. Only strength mattered here. Old poisonous monster, don't you want his memories? Go and try. Said Bai Yu to the Maharaja. The old poisonous monster's face stiffened. That guy was the god of hell. He had already lost against him. He wanted to fight again, but in the Bestial Memorial Pagoda, not outside, because he could die for real outside. Lin Feng had become much stronger. He was dangerous. Don't you want to try? The old poisonous monster asked Bai Yu. Bai Yu smiled indifferently. Old poisonous monster, if you don't dare attack, in 3 months, if he's still alive, you can become his fighting phantom protector, if he wants to recruit you. When the old poisonous monster heard that, his face stiffened. Becoming that guy's protector? Phew! He took a deep breath, looking desperate. He slowly rose up in the air. Bai Yu's beautiful eyes twinkled when she saw that. Was he going to attack? What do you have to say about what we talked about? The old poisonous monster said to Lin Feng calmly. What? Replied Lin Feng coldly. He looked like a death god. I am about to attack you. If you lose, I won't kill you, just transmit me the memories. If I lose, I'll transmit you the memories, said the old poisonous monster calmly. Lin Feng smiled coldly. You're afraid to die. The old poisonous monster's face stiffened in tight anger. I am about to become a Tian D-level beast, how could I fear you? So, just attack then, replied Lin Feng detachedly. The Maharaja's face stiffened into a grimace. He had reached a point of no return. If I lose, I am willing to become your protector, proposed the old poisonous monster. However, on the inside, he was thinking he was going to do his best to kill Lin Feng. If he lost, he'd find a way to escape. Lin Feng understood perfectly, he just nodded coldly. All right, I will recruit you then. Chapter 2259. Candidate. When the Maharaja heard that, he was furious. Everybody feared him in the great imperial city. Lin Feng was saying he was going to recruit him? How insolent! Poisonous qi filled the air. Many people quickly retreated. Very quickly, the poison surrounded both fighters. The air began to hum thickly. The crowd saw a terrifying gigantic Maharaga taking his true form. The gigantic Maharaga threw himself at Lin Feng. He opened his mouth and spat out poison unceasingly. When the poison appeared around Lin Feng, he stopped opening his mouth. The previous time, he had made that mistake and Lin Feng had defeated him that way. Lin Feng was too fast. He wanted to use physical strength or spells to defy him. Dong! 9 words appeared around Lin Feng. The earth and the sky trembled. An incredible quantity of death chi surrounded the Maharaga. The poison corroded his body and his death chi corroded the Maharaga's body. Lin Feng then charged the old poisonous monster. He was a tiny little cultivator and his enemy was a gigantic Maharaga. Everybody had the impression the Maharaga had the advantage because of that. The Maharaga spat out more poison at Lin Feng. That poison was thick, and there was enough for Lin Feng to drown in it. Lin Feng condensed dark demon lightning, which streaked across the sky in flickers of energy. The poison instantly disappeared, turned to powder. Lin Feng attacked the Maharaga, millions of death stamps appeared and rained down. The Maharaga's heart was pounding. But his Tao intent was corroding Lin Feng's body too. His poison intent was fearsome. Time passed. The two fighters drew closer and closer. The battle was explosive. The Maharaga's face looked ferocious. His gigantic eyes were filled with green lights. He desperately wanted to kill Lin Feng. Roar! The Maharaga shouted furiously. A terrifying poison pellet moved towards Lin Feng. The poison chi was deadly. However, Lin Feng countered with an incredible amount of strength, which turned into sword energies and cut apart everything around him. The sword energies descended from the sky and cut the poison pellet in two. Lin Feng then threw himself at the Maharaga, aiming at his head. The Maharaga threw himself at Lin Feng as well, trying to constrict Lin Feng. An ancient chi filled the air. Lin Feng completely turned into a death sword and shot himself at the Maharaga. The Maharaga lowered his head, not daring to let Lin Feng attack him. However, Lin Feng still aimed at his head. Of course, Lin Feng was just a gigantic death sword at that moment. The Maharaga constricted the sword, sensing the terrifying sharp chi. The sword energy gradually cut into his head, and death strength penetrated into his body. His gigantic body was trembling. He kept screaming. He wanted to crush Lin Feng, but Lin Feng was too strong. His face began to distort. The gigantic Maharaga was trembling, which made the crowd tremble as well. The old poisonous monster wanted to constrict Lin Feng, not a sword. "I lost," shouted the old poisonous monster. He let go of Lin Feng. The crowd saw a third of the sword penetrate into the old poisonous monster's body. It was astonishing. The Maharaga turned black. The sword emitted whistling sounds before coming out of the Maharaga's body. Lin Feng became himself again. He was staring at the Maharaga, who was breathing loudly. Lin Feng said coldly, "I'll recruit you as a protector." The Maharaga was shaking. He raised his head and asked, "Are you really only a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer?" "Yes, for some reason I can't break through to the Di Qi layer," said Lin Feng calmly. "Of course, that's probably only temporary. If I had broken through to the Di Qi layer, I would have been able to kill you in the blink of an eye." When the crowd heard Lin Feng, they shuddered with fear. How arrogant! However, they had to admit that with the strength of the Huang Qi layer, Lin Feng was already terrifying. If he became a great emperor, he would be impossibly strong. The Maharaga spat out qi, staring at Lin Feng and said, "All right, if you become a fighting phantom, I'll become your protector. Of course, if you die, I won't be able to." "Don't worry," replied Lin Feng indifferently, glancing at the crowd. "If nobody attacks me, I'm going." Lin Feng started walking. All the beasts were stunned and wavered as they watched him go. After a short time, Lin Feng arrived in a mountain range. Life and death lights glittered around him. Sky-absorbing life and death strength filled the air. He summoned the strength of the 10,000 things of creation, condensed them, and cast a deployment spell. It contained a terrifying amount of death strength. All the beasts were scared. Nobody dared provoke him anymore. Even though beasts didn't like humans, they had to admit that this human was terrifying. His understanding of cultivation was incredible. He didn't just have incredible fighting abilities, he was a genius. Now that he had cast a deployment spell, killing him was almost impossible. However, some beasts didn't fear him. A terrifying rhinoceros wearing armor charged at Lin Feng. The air kept trembling. The deployment spell was shaking fiercely and seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Gigantic pieces of stones exploded, rose up in the air and then fell down from the sky towards the deployment spell. The rhinoceros was wrecking the mountain range. The gigantic rhinoceros galloped, craters appearing under him. Pieces of mountains continued flying towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng closed his eyes and raised his fists. He used his ancient holy fists and didn't even open his eyes. When the rhinoceros arrived near Lin Feng, he roared out. The deployment spell became dazzling and deployment spell energy filled the air. At the same time, Lin Feng released Death Dao and Death Stamps, which smashed down on the rhinoceros. The great imperial rhinoceros collapsed and fell from the sky. His Death Dao has reached the maximum level. How explosive! Murmured all the beasts. Even celestial emperors didn't understand Dao's strength that well. Many people only reached the last level at when they became saint emperors, but even then, they didn't reach the top of the maximum level. But Lin Feng's Death Dao had reached the top. He could crush great imperial beasts in the blink of an eye. If we continue with one-on-ones, nobody in the King of the 10,000 Beasts territory can compete with him. Only a group can defeat him. The King of the 10,000 Beasts territory hasn't seen such a genius in such a long, long time, commented many people staring at the mirror. They looked at Lin Feng with great respect. People admired strong cultivators. The King of the 10,000 Beasts wanted to show everyone in his world what the fighting phantoms had in common, so he wanted everyone to be able to look at them. Strong cultivators from all territories came. More and more corpses appeared at the foot of the deployment spell. All of them were incredible great imperial beasts. But it didn't matter, because a fighting phantom was emerging. If Lin Feng wanted to become a fighting phantom, he had to kill a countless number of great imperial beasts. It was inevitable. Gradually, time passed. There were more and more corpses. The strong cultivators of the King of the 10,000 Beasts world didn't feel like fighting anymore. They slowly looked at Lin Feng respectfully. Bai Yu and the others were still watching. Bai Yu said calmly, "One more week and he'll become a fighting phantom. I never thought this guy who came in here with us would become a fighting phantom. If he hadn't used a deployment spell, I would have been able to defeat him, but his deployment spell contains a terrifying death strength. I can't do much against him," murmured the dark golden-pupiled king. "If he becomes a fighting phantom, all the ministers will select protectors for him. Will you become protectors for him?" Bai Yu calmly asked the others. Fighting Phantom Protector? That was an incredible title and social status in the King of the 10,000 Beasts world, because fighting phantoms were extremely rare. One appeared maybe every 1,000 years. Becoming a fighting phantom meant that everyone else was already too inferior to be compared. Becoming a protector was a way to improve in the future. However, Lin Feng was only an emperor. But still, they couldn't help admiring and respecting him. "I wouldn't mind becoming his protector," said Zishu's flood dragon, staring at Lin Feng. He didn't think it was something to be ashamed of. Being a protector wasn't like being a slave. During a few hundred years, protectors enjoyed a special status. If they didn't like their fighting phantom, they could also give up. Chapter 2260. Master. The final deadline was approaching. Everybody was excited and watching Lin Feng enthusiastically. A fighting phantom is going to appear. There were mountains of corpses at the foot of Lin Feng's deployment spell. He had killed so many people. After making a public announcement, he had only been to 2 places. He hadn't been traveling around constantly. His death intent is terrifying. During these 3 months, not only didn't he get injured, but he also became stronger, thought Bai Yu, staring at Lin Feng's eyes. During those 3 months, she had seen Lin Feng change. He had become even more terrifying. These days, great imperial beasts just had to glance at Lin Feng's eyes, and they died. 1 second and he could kill them. His fighting abilities were terrifying. She had never seen anything like that in her life. More beasts jumped into his deployment spells. People sighed, "How brave!" Some terrifying beasts also came from other places, but in all, fewer and fewer people dared go and attack Lin Feng. Many beasts already considered him a future fighting phantom. But the beasts who were brave enough to go and try all ended up dead. After a short time, they just became corpses among the others. Many beasts were thinking that the corpses on the ground represented an almost endless source of wealth, too. During the last 2 days, nobody attacked, and the 3-month deadline arrived. Some gigantic silhouettes appeared in the sky. They looked like gods. Minister Rock. Many beasts were stupefied when they saw Minister Rock. Minister Jiao. The people looked at the ministers with respect and admiration. Minister Jiao was from another territory. All the ministers from all the territories had arrived at that moment. They all looked at Lin Feng. They had watched his battles. It was the first time someone managed to become a fighting phantom with only the strength of the Huangqi layer. It was incredible. They would always remember such an accomplishment. Kacha. The mirror which shone down on Lin Feng broke apart, startling everyone. It meant that the 3-month period was over. Lin Feng was now officially a fighting phantom. A new fighting phantom. Everybody was shaking. In the sky, yet another silhouette appeared. That person descended from the sky. He had no chi and looked ordinary. On the ground, nobody would have paid attention to him. However, everybody understood that this person had regained a natural state. Leader! The ministers all bowed. The crowd shuddered with fear. The master was there. Ah, congratulations. Finally, another fighting phantom after me, said that person, laughing loudly. Oh, so the master was the last person who became a fighting phantom? Now he's a peerless cultivator? I don't know what his cultivation level is, but he's terrifying anyway. They looked at Lin Feng. Would Lin Feng become a peerless cultivator too? Follow me, said the leader, smiling at Lin Feng. Then he looked at all the beasts and said, since the fighting phantom has already appeared, he'll probably choose protectors in the following month. The ministers are in charge of that. Yes, master, said the ministers in unison, looking at the leader and Lin Feng. Let's go. After that, some strength surrounded Lin Feng and they disappeared. Bai Yu and the others looked stunned and hopeless. He was gone. He had become a fighting phantom. He was going to become a terrifying cultivator someday. Lin Feng followed the leader. He looked like a 40-some-year-old man, but he was probably extremely old. He looked absolutely ordinary as well. Master, where are we going? Asked Lin Feng. Your temporary residence, said the leader, smiling. They traveled a great distance. They even crossed some doors. Finally, they arrived in an ordinary city. There were beasts and humans coexisting peacefully. Their cultivation levels were extraordinarily low. Lin Feng didn't understand. When the leader saw Lin Feng's face, he said, Don't call me master. Call me Uncle Wang. All right, Uncle Wang. But where are we? A small city in King of the 10,000 Beasts world. I've been living here recently. It's peaceful. The leader and Lin Feng took a walk down the main street. Someone smiled and asked, Teacher Wang, who's that little boy? Are you trying to help him find a woman? Woman? Lin Feng's face stiffened. Hee. The leader smiled fatuously. On the way, many people called out to him. In front of them, a beautiful woman appeared and looked at the leader. She smiled and said, Dad, you're back. Yes, I'm back, the leader grinned. The woman looked at Lin Feng and followed them as they entered a forge. Dad, we've acquired many goods. I was waiting for you to make weapons, said the young woman happily. The leader smiled and replied, Let's do it. Lin Feng looked at them strangely. They took up hammers and started forging weapons. The young woman looked at Lin Feng, smiled and asked, Who are you? Lin Feng was surprised. The leader just smiled, so Lin Feng replied, I'm Uncle Wang's friend. I'm from abroad. I'm here as a tourist. Lin Feng asked her, Your Uncle Wang's daughter? Don't we look similar? Laughed the woman. How old are you? Asked Lin Feng. 19, replied the young woman. Lin Feng remained silent. He looked at the leader's wife. She was also a beautiful woman. He had a beautiful wife and a talented daughter. Lin Feng spent some days there. The leader had an ordinary life there. Nobody knew he was a leader. Nobody knew he was a terrifying cultivator. He was just an ordinary blacksmith there. But Lin Feng was astonished and speechless. This person had gone through hardships in life? Lin Feng had no doubts about that. Maybe the leader had lived there for dozens of years. Well, at least 19 years because his daughter was 19 years old. Lin Feng couldn't help but wonder if other strong cultivators had such lives at some point. After many lives and reincarnations, they ended up with many families, many descendants. Lin Feng and the leader were in a backyard sitting in chairs. The leader smiled and asked, "How do you feel?" "Surprised," replied Lin Feng. "Normal. You're young. You can't imagine what it feels like to have all sort of lives. Only after having had many lives, it feels like you've lived once. It's good for you to be here. Many people like me have ordinary lives. Even if you pass next to them, you won't know who they really are." Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, next to people like the leader, it was impossible to know they were extremely strong. In the continent of the 9 clouds, there had been many, many peerless cultivators. Had they died? Of course they hadn't, but where were they? Did they have very ordinary lives in villages and small cities? You've just become a fighting phantom. Many people will be watching you. Will you get used to it? Asked the leader. Lin Feng shook his head. He wasn't interested in being a fighting phantom, but change was always something special. Polishing, cleaning, that makes you change, that makes you grow up, laughed the leader. Lin Feng understood what he meant. He wasn't trying to teach him how to become stronger. I decided to become a fighting phantom just so I could leave the king of the 10,000 beasts territory. Now, I'm thinking after leaving, shouldn't I have a normal life for some time too? Lin Feng smiled. The leader nodded. No rush. Don't be impatient. First, your protectors will be chosen. After that, you can leave. You can also take them with you. Thank you very much, Uncle Wang, said Lin Feng politely. No need. The king of the 10,000 beasts asked me to take care of you. He attached great importance to you, replied the leader easily. If someday we become extremely strong, you'll definitely be with us. Chapter 2261. Leaving the territory. Lin Feng smiled casually and gazed into the distance. He had already traveled around the world. However, he couldn't be like the leader and live like an ordinary person, because people who stood at the top already had everything they wanted in life. There was no risk they would fall anymore, almost. Among the strong cultivators who stood at the top, some people had joined shrines and had incredible privileges. Some people were invited all over the world, such as Shiju Lao Xian, and some people stood aloof from worldly strife. For them, cultivation was about cultivating one's mind and body, but it was more maintenance work at their level. Of course, some people decided to contribute to society even more by writing books for others, such as the strong cultivators who had written the books in the shrines. Other extremely strong cultivators had written about the 8 distresses to help people. It mainly depended on their lives. Lin Feng spent some peaceful days on the leader's side, living like an ordinary human being. Finally, the leader took Lin Feng away and they left. "Father, come back soon," said the leader's daughter. He waved at his daughter and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll come back soon. Take care of your mother." "All right," smiled the young woman. Then Lin Feng and the leader slowly disappeared from their field of vision. People in the king of the 10,000 beasts world were still amazed at the existence of a new fighting phantom. The ministers announced publicly that they would be looking for fighting phantom protectors. All the ministers were involved. People who wanted to become fighting phantom protectors could be recruited at all levels among great imperial and Tian level beasts. Many people wanted to become fighting phantom protectors, and some of them were extremely strong. They cared about the future and had long-term plans. 36 fighting phantom protectors were chosen and gathered in front of the leader's palace, waiting for the leader to come back. Some beasts who had lived for a very, very long time looked excited. They remembered back when the leader had become a fighting phantom, They had heard that many of his protectors had a much higher cultivation level than him. Many of those people were already ministers and were extremely strong, but the leader had already become much stronger than them. The new fighting phantom was even more special because he only had the strength of the Huangqi layer, but he was already extremely strong. Many people who wanted to become protectors actually had much better fighting abilities than him, but they didn't think about too much. They knew it was only temporary. They were convinced that 1,000, or even just 100 years later, he'd be much, much stronger than them. Two people arrived slowly. People raised their heads and saw the leader and Lin Feng had returned. Where had the leader taken Lin Feng? These are the fighting phantom protectors who have been chosen for you. You can keep some of them only, or all of them as you wish, said the leader to Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced over the crowd. The beasts there all looked terrifying and had a terrifying qi. They were among the strongest people of the king of the 10,000 beasts territory. Fighting phantoms had an incredibly high social status, because they were sure to become leaders someday. I know that many of you are ambitious and proud. However, I need people who will listen to my orders. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Now, you can choose, you stay or you leave as you wish, said Lin Feng indifferently. He didn't need to have a burden. If he had an extremely strong cultivator on his side, but that cultivator didn't listen to him, then that would just be a burden. Such cultivators were useless. On the ground, many beasts' eyes glittered. They were wondering what would happen if someday Lin Feng asked them to do something they weren't willing to do. Would they be willing to serve him? I give up, said a beast. Stepping back, he bowed before the leader and left. Me too. Very quickly, people left one after another. Just over 20 beasts were left. They all looked determined. You, leave now, said Lin Feng, pointing at a few beasts. They all looked stupefied. Lin Feng didn't want them. How humiliating. However, they didn't know that Lin Feng had carefully observed their faces and had seen that they weren't as determined as they thought. Only 18 beasts were now left. Lin Feng was surprised because apart from Dinua, all the other beasts who had come to that world with him were there. 18 beasts, 6 celestial imperial beasts, qi filling the air around them. Those celestial imperial beasts were among the best in the territory. Master, last time, the king of the 10,000 beasts told us that fighting phantoms could leave the territory, but can fighting phantom protectors leave the territories? Asked Lin Feng. Of course, they're your protectors, and you have the privilege of being able to leave. You can keep them with you. Great, I will take them with me, said Lin Feng calmly. So many years had passed. Things had changed in the continent of the 9 clouds. With a personal army, he'd be much safer. Lin Feng left the king of the 10,000 beasts territory with his protectors. When he arrived in the 8 great imperial animal cities, some people saw Bai Yu and the others, and their hearts started beating faster. Bai Yu, Qinghai's rock and the others were following Lin Feng? What was going on? However, Lin Feng didn't stop there. He left that place too. They arrived in Long Night City. The sword sect appeared in front of them. Very quickly, a group of strong cultivators appeared outside, including several celestial emperors. When Jiao Yu's ministry learned about it, some of their cultivators also came to watch. When the strong cultivators arrived and saw Lin Feng, they were stunned. Those beasts' qi were dreadful. Die, said Lin Feng. A terrifying amount of bestial qi filled the air. The beasts rose up into the air and blotted out the sky. Horrible screams arose as blood splashed and gushed all around. When the crowd saw that, they were terrified. Where were these beasts from? Great Emperor Bai's daughter. Qinghai's rock. Some strong cultivators of Jiao Yu's ministry recognized some beasts, frowning when they saw them. Some noble beasts from the great imperial city had surprisingly come here. Qing Air was stupefied. What was going on? Lin Feng suddenly looked over at the people from Jiao Yu's ministry, including the celestial master of the 7 Knights. The previous time he had seen him, he remembered now. That person had also forced him into hell. He had noticed Lin Feng was extremely strong back then, even though Lin Feng was a nobody. Kill him, ordered Lin Feng, calmly pointing at the celestial master of the 7 Knights. Everybody was astonished. He wanted to kill a strong cultivator from Jiao Yu's ministry. He was the celestial master of the 7 knights. The beasts didn't care though. They threw themselves at the celestial master of the 7 knights. The strong cultivators of Jiao Yu's ministry shouted explosively, "Insolent! This is Long Night City. Great imperial beasts can't afford to act insolently here." When that great emperor said that, some claws landed on his head and tore him apart. He didn't even have time to react before he collapsed, headless. Jiao Yu's ministry is nothing in comparison to the king of the 10,000 beasts world. Jiao Yu's ministry is a futile and trivial place. "We can easily destroy you," said a beast rudely. Many strong cultivators shuddered with fear. These beasts were under the orders of the legendary king of the 10,000 beasts? The king of the 10,000 beasts really existed? But in any case, these beasts were terrifying, that was a fact. "Why do you want to kill me?" asked the celestial master of the 7 knights, staring at Lin Feng. He sounded cold and bitter. A few celestial imperial beasts had surrounded him. He was stuck. "Do you remember back in the small world? In Jiao Yu? Back then, you forced a young man to jump into the black water," replied Lin Feng flatly. The celestial master of the 7 knights frowned. He looked pensive for a few seconds and then he remembered. His face changed drastically. "Impossible, who are you?" "I am that young man," said Lin Feng, releasing death intent. The celestial master of the 7 knights' face completely changed. The terrifying beasts around him were fighting phantom protectors. Even the celestial master of the 7 knights couldn't do much against celestial imperial beasts. All he could do was put up a last-ditch struggle. Until the moment he died, he never thought he'd feel so humiliated in life. This had happened because a long time before, he had bullied a young man. A terrifying chi filled the air. In the distance, some strong cultivators from Jiao Yu's ministry arrived. They were furious. Their chi rolled out and they shouted, "Who dares act that arrogantly and kill people from Jiao Yu's ministry? If you don't want Jiao Yu's ministry to be wiped off the map, piss off," retorted a celestial imperial beast, coldly staring at those people. The one who had just talked pulled a long face and asked, "You're from the Great Imperial City?" "Great Imperial City? I used to be, a very long time ago," said the celestial imperial beast coldly. Then he said, "Piss off now. You don't want to offend the king of the 10,000 beasts." That strong cultivator grimaced. The king of the 10,000 beasts? Jiao Yu's ministry had a high position in the region. They had heard about the king of the 10,000 beasts, and if these beasts really came from the king of the 10,000 beasts territory, indeed, Jiao Yu's ministry couldn't afford to offend them. "Let's go," Lin Feng said calmly at that moment. He didn't want to stay there. His forces all left and the strong cultivators of the sword sect and Jiao Yu's ministry didn't dare do anything, but glare helplessly after them. Chapter 2262. How long did that dream last? In the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, the shrines had incredible privileges. Their headquarters were gigantic pyramids which towered over that gigantic territory. However, the shrines hadn't been that relaxed for the last few years. Chu Chunqiu was still in Ganji's time. He had already become extremely strong. A short time before, he had defeated a celestial imperial beast. His fighting abilities were shocking. He was progressing way too fast, and the supreme animal world also supported him a lot. After the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, he had almost immediately become a great emperor. Now, a dozen years had passed and he was already a celestial emperor. That kind of speed was astonishing and breathtaking. The shrines felt pressured. Was Chu Chunqiu that guy? All the shrines paid attention to Chu Chunqiu. Everybody in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds paid attention to him, actually. Back then, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, many people had paid attention to him and a few others. However, after the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, many people had stopped paying attention to the others, especially since many of them had left the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Of course, in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, there were many strong cultivators. Many of them paid attention to Chu Chunqiu, as he was a core disciple in a shrine. Core disciples, no matter which shrine they belonged to, were extremely strong. There were also some other influential groups, many of them very strong cultivators. Many of them were at the top of the Huang Qi layer already. Everybody was becoming stronger. Even the strongest cultivators of the continent of the 9 clouds were becoming stronger, including the holy city. People of the same generations continued competing. Such things influenced everybody and every faction. However, Lin Feng didn't care about those things. At that moment, he was in purple clouds, in a cave situated in a place where there weren't many people. He was seated cross-legged practicing cultivation. The fighting phantom protectors were with him. He was visualizing various things. There was a scene with one Lin Feng. He was at the very top of a mountain, watching the sun rise and set. He was living like a hermit. Another scene was Lin Feng traveling around the world. Another scene was Lin Feng, living in a small village and hunting with other villagers. He met a woman he liked, and they got married. He didn't disappoint her, even though he felt lonely in the end because his mood and thoughts changed with time as he grew older. There were many other scenes, Lin Feng's clones, the 3 live scriptures. Lin Feng could make as many ordinary clones as he wanted. Those clones could have ordinary lives. Lin Feng was wondering whether the 3 lives great emperor was doing that too, whether he had many clones everywhere in the world. The original Lin Feng's hair was very long, and his beard was long too. He started looking more mature. However, he didn't know that. He just continued meditating. Apart from purple clouds, he was also in many other places in the continent, many other places in small worlds, many places in his own small world. Gradually, it was as if one brain wasn't enough anymore. It was like a dream, as if all those lives had been dreams. One day, Lin Feng went into a dream. He was in a restaurant, working as a servant. Every day, he chatted with guests and heard them talk about interesting stories in the continent. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Ordinary days like that were also pleasant. However, not every dream was great. Lin Feng was in another dream, and there he was a hunter in a village and had gotten married with a beautiful woman from the village as well. Their relationship was harmonious. However, one day, a group of brigands arrived and attacked them. They killed everyone. Lin Feng was furious. He wished he could have gone there himself with his real body to kill them. Lin Feng's real body was asleep, but he was still furious. However, he also managed to calm down. Millions of clones, millions of lives. Could he remain calm? Wasn't he lonely actually? Could he just let nature take its course? He gradually calmed down when thinking about that. After that, in other dreams, he ended up in many other similar situations. His mood, his perceptions, his vision were changing. Everything was changing everywhere. The same thing happened in his spirit's world. It was becoming bigger and bigger. It was almost a perfect small world. There were all sorts of qi, all sorts of energies, but at the same time, that world corresponded to Lin Feng's vision and it was improving quickly. Lin Feng's real body was asleep. An ancient tree appeared indistinctly around him. Terrifying cosmic energies surrounded his body. They were intense and contained the strength of the 10,000 things of creation around Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't move. He was sleeping. In his mind, golden lights intertwined. His godly awareness started communicating with the earth and sky. Lin Feng dreamed about many things. Apart from dreaming of millions of lives, he also dreamt about cultivation. He dreamt about the world of the living imprints attacks. In his dream, he understood those attacks even better. One attack, and it seemed that the earth and sky could collapse. He also dreamed about his spirit, about many other spirits, and finally, he dreamt of his most powerful spirit, the celestial book spirit. All the pages looked dazzling and beautiful. In that dream, he studied a lot. Time passed in the outside world, but Lin Feng forgot about time. The imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, everything changed. In the Snow Clan, a beautiful silhouette appeared on a snowy field. Her qi looked extraordinary. She was standing at the top of a mountain, gazing into the distance. She was thinking about him, missing him. Finally, tears appeared in her eyes, her lips twitched and she said, "I've been a lone fox for 1,000 years, I've been lonely for 1,000 years, I love you unconditionally, you passed the imperial examinations, I want to dance for you again, may I dance for you, may I dance for you?" she was singing. Her voice was beautiful. She started dancing, looking extremely beautiful as she danced with the snow. Could you see her dance, though? Snowflakes floated around her. She continued chanting. In the distance was a snowy tree. A young man was standing there. He was wearing armor, but tears appeared in his eyes. He raised his head, his eyes were red, he took a deep breath and swore, "Someday, I will do my best so that nobody forces my parents to live apart. If anyone stops me, rivers of blood will flow, even if those people are from the Snow Clan." On that day, that young man was 18 years old. The 20-year period was imminent. On that day, Lin Feng was dreaming. Chapter 2263. Waking up, destruction of the sky. Lin Feng didn't know how much time he had spent in the cave. His hair and beard were really long and he was covered with dust. He looked much more mature. His golden godly awareness palace was dazzling and lofty. In his dream, he had managed to create the real godly awareness palace. It had become a great imperial godly awareness palace. His physical strength had been improved by the heavenly grace ancient tree. During these years, he had improved in every aspect. Without the heavenly grace ancient tree, he would have needed many more years to become that strong. His celestial book spirit was dazzling. He absorbed all the spirits he had ever absorbed and transformed them into his own strength. His spirit and his spirit's world were becoming better and better. Lin Feng didn't need to control it anymore. It was an independent world. During these years, his millions of clones had developed that world. The Sky Palace, what's the date tonight? Remembered Lin Feng. He came back to his senses. My Tao is going to be complete, said Lin Feng without paying attention, as if he didn't know what was going on. Lin Feng's celestial book spirit trembled. Dark lightning filled the air around him, as if his spirit were about to explode. Dark lightning started bombarding him. It looked like Judgment Day around him. Finally, his celestial book exploded and turned into a world, and only that world was left. Lin Feng didn't look perturbed. His spirit's world was trembling. People inside raised their heads and saw terrifying dark lightning across the sky. Tang Yu was in Shuiyu, and when she saw the dark thunders, she looked terrified. Luckily, those were ancient forbidden lightnings, so they weren't destructive. It was just qi contained in that world. Otherwise, such a powerful qi could have destroyed that world if it had been part of an attack. At the same time, in the outside world of purple clouds, the sky started breaking. Many people raised their heads and started trembling. The sky was breaking in purple clouds. There was no sky anymore in purple clouds. What kind of strength had provoked that? In a distant mountain, an old man was seated in a chair and suddenly stood up. He was bent, and soon started shaking, and then rose into the air like a spiritual being. Am I dreaming? His son was speechless. The sky was broken? His father had risen up into the air. What was going on? Were heaven and earth on the verge of collapse? The old man gazed into the distance and saw pitch-black forbidden lights. He realized something, and his face changed drastically. The prophecy, the legends in the old days, it's happening, whispered the old man. He suddenly disappeared from where he was. He wanted to see what was going to happen. Throughout purple clouds, many hidden strong cultivators raised their heads, all thinking the same thought. The sky was going to change. In the fire shrine, someone who protected the entrance trembled. His face paled. He was staring at the sky, where forbidden lights were flashing in purple clouds and the sky was broken. Something big is going to happen. Oh no! He started running and disappeared. After a short time, many people reappeared at his post. Everybody looked at purple clouds. They all grimaced, including the leader of the fire shrine. Phew, we've been fooled, whispered the leader of the fire shrine. Then he said, go to purple clouds. If you find the one who attracted the forbidden energy, kill him. Do all you can to find out who among the top 10 cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds went to purple clouds. Yes, sir. Everybody nodded. Some people headed to purple clouds, some people asked around, some people went to other shrines. At the same time, the other shrines also realized what was going on. In the fortune shrine, the diviner was up in the starlit sky. He could see the forbidden lightning and smiled. He wouldn't have thought that the forbidden lightning would cause such damage to lower-class worlds. Next to him were a few people, including the leader of the fortune shrine. He said to the diviner, telepathically, "Go and tell him to hide. He can't appear." "I understand," the diviner nodded. He left immediately. He went to find Lin Feng's clone, who was in the archive room. "From now on, the shrines are all on alert," said the leader of the fortune shrine calmly. Everybody around nodded. Actually, most of them were uninformed, completely in the dark. They didn't know about the destiny wheel, and they didn't know about Lin Feng. Lin Feng had the impression he had been dreaming for 1,000 years. He slowly opened his eyes. Even though he had dreamt, everything had felt so real. Obviously, he knew what had happened. He also knew that his Tao was going to be unlimited soon. There would be no restrictions anymore. However, the last step would be gigantic. He stood up and looked at himself, smiling wryly. Sword energy filled the air, and cut his hair and shaved his beard. Fire and water appeared around him. Hot water cleaned his body. He looked normal and clean once again. But very quickly he also changed his face. The diviner had warned him that nobody could know he was in purple clouds. Luckily, only the celestial master of the 7 Knights knew about him, but he was dead already. The others didn't know who he was, and the king of the 10,000 beast territory was a forbidden area. The lights of the heavenly grace ancient tree gradually disappeared. Lin Feng smiled. He would bring the heavenly grace ancient tree back to Godlywood Valley at some point. It had helped him a lot already. But what is my cultivation level? What is that mysterious Tao? Thought Lin Feng. He finally understood what a forbidden body without a cultivation level meant. Actually, he just had different levels from other people. Lin Feng walked out of the cave in which he had spent a few years. Behind him, the cave exploded and rumbling sounds spread out as the mountain collapsed. He didn't leave a single thread of chi inside. He headed back to purple clouds. The sky had already reappeared here. However, many people were still shocked about what had happened. Some terrifyingly strong cultivators had come and were looking for something. People were really scared. The outsiders had been looking for someone for half a year already. Those days, Lin Feng spent some time in a small city. He went to a small restaurant there and chatted and drank alcohol with other guests. When the restaurant closed, he went back to the village, watching the sunset above the mountain. He had an ordinary, peaceful, and tranquil life there. Time passed. Many people in the shrines were furious, but because nobody found him, the shrines didn't start fighting. All the shrines were looking for the top 10 cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, with orders to kill them if anyone saw them. This time, someone who had a forbidden body was in the world and he had to be killed, no matter what. The situation was different from 1,000 years before. Chapter 2264. Old friend. Many people were walking along an ancient road. The city was packed. Now and then, one could hear a drunk young man singing. He looked natural and unrestrained. He was with 4 beautiful women. They were singing with him. Little Yu, now Qiongxing must be an adult already. How strong do you think he is? Asked Lin Feng, smiling sadly. He missed his son. How could I know? We haven't seen him for such a long time. I wish we could go and see him, said Tang Yu with a smile. Yes, we will, said Lin Feng, smiling and nodding. He looked at Chiu Yuxin and Lu Fei and smiled. Yuxin, Fei Fei, should we have children together too? The 2 women blushed and rolled their eyes. The other one, a beautiful woman too, smiled and giggled. You're right, Sister Yuxin and Sister Fei Fei should have children too. You little indecent girl. Lu Fei said to Xiaoya. I'm still a little girl? Xiaoya stuck out her tongue. Yes, you're not a kid anymore, you should find a husband, Lin Feng smiled. They kept laughing. Lin Feng took out a bottle of alcohol and downed it. His blood and qi boiled and he took a deep breath. So many years had passed. How was everyone? They weren't like him, they probably weren't stuck at the same cultivation level. They were probably all great emperors already, especially those who had king-type bodies. Jun Mo Shi and Lang Yi had probably become extremely strong, their fighting abilities had probably greatly increased. Time passed, and even though Lin Feng was only 30 to 40 years old, he already had the impression he had lived many lives. That was natural. In the last years, many things had passed. Lin Feng had the impression life became more and more dreamlike as time passed. He had experienced the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives and then he had dreamt. The Sky Palace, what's the date tonight? Their group continued walking in the city. They walked a lot, crossing the continent and finally, they arrived in dark clouds. They arrived near a vast stretch of water, where some people played the zither. Lin Feng listened and smiled. It looked like a painting, a beautiful painting. Some beautiful women were dancing. Many young geniuses were seated cross-legged, drinking and listening to the music. That music is beautiful. The vast celestial ancient city is the only place where you can see such a scene, proclaimed a young man. He was out on a small boat. Many people looked at him with admiration. He was the Prince of Sadness. The Prince of Sadness made women sad. He was extremely strong. He had good relations with the women of the Moon Palace, and he was complimenting the Moon Palace by saying such things. Prince of Sadness, you're flattering us, said a beautiful woman playing the zither. She bowed in front of him. Miss Luo Yi, you're too humble. With your abilities, you could join the Moon Palace. You have a perfect figure and incredible artistic abilities. Why don't you become a celestial woman of the Moon Palace? I would recommend you, smiled the Prince of Sadness. Many men were in love with the celestial women of the Prince of Sadness. Luo Yi looked excited. She had heard that the Moon Palace had many incredible skills and techniques. How could a beautiful woman fall into that decadence? Interrupted Lin Feng at that moment. Many people looked over at him. How audacious, how arrogant. He was humiliating the Moon Palace. The Moon Palace was like many ancient holy clans, nobody could offend or criticize them. Besides, everybody admired the Moon Palace. They had existed for a very long time, and many people thought well of them. The Prince of Sadness looked at Lin Feng, he smiled and asked calmly, Who are you, Your Excellency? A traveler, replied Lin Feng calmly. He recognized the Prince of Sadness, but the Prince of Sadness didn't recognize him. Since you're a traveler, why do you talk nonsense? Why don't you keep your mouth shut? Asked the Prince of Sadness with a carefree smile. Everybody understood that the Prince of Sadness loved the Moon Palace. He was elegant and unrestrained, and when people were disrespectful, he immediately threatened them. I don't know, replied Lin Feng. He turned around and looked back at the Prince of Sadness. The Prince of Sadness was talented and outstanding. Back then, he was already famous in the vast celestial ancient city. Many people didn't know how strong he was. He was a great emperor now, and he had broken through to the Di-Chi layer a long time ago. The Prince of Sadness looked at Lin Feng calmly. He smiled indifferently, yet coldly. Lin Feng looked apathetic. He waved his hand and arrows of sadness appeared. The atmosphere became sad and sorrowful. Prince of Sadness, arrows of sadness. An arrow shot towards Lin Feng. They were some distance from one another, but the arrow moved so fast, it was like they were right next to one another. Lin Feng raised his hand. Sword strength emerged from his fingers and the arrow broke instantly. At the same time, Lin Feng walked out above the lake, looking confident and at ease. Your Excellency, your dissimulation technique is incredible. We can't even see your cultivation level, said the Prince of Sadness flatly. A melody of death spread through the air, the water of the lake began to churn. Sharp swords hurtled towards Lin Feng. Beasts roared, and people's souls shook. Many arrows also whistled towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng continued walking forwards and destroyed all of the Prince of Sadness attacks. The prince was astonished. Back in the day, I was wondering why the chessboard was in the Prince of Sadness mansion house. Now, I think that you're a member of the Moon Palace, and that you've studied the celestial evolution holy scriptures, said Lin Feng calmly. He had noticed the Prince of Sadness' insane attacks contained all sorts of evolved and modified strengths. The prince's face changed drastically. He was staring at Lin Feng as he shouted extremely loudly, "Who are you? Prince of Sadness, you will never be sad, or make people sad again," said Lin Feng calmly. A terrifying death strength penetrated into the prince's body, and his face turned gray. He released as much life chi as he could, terrified and staring at Lin Feng. Who was this extremely strong cultivator? When had he offended him? Back then in the vast celestial ancient city, you were the one who tried to kill me using attacks which had been modified with the celestial evolution holy scriptures. I think I'm right, said Lin Feng. The Prince of Sadness gaped. He was staring at Lin Feng, the first cultivator of the continent of the 9 clouds. His mouth was wide open. He wanted to say something, but he had no time. Death intent was corroding his life, and he couldn't resist. After a few seconds, he softly collapsed in the small boat. Everybody around was astonished. The Prince of Sadness had just died? Like that? In a few seconds? When they turned around, they noticed that the murderer was already walking away, as if killing the Prince of Sadness had just been a trivial thing. Who is he? Wondered everyone. Their hearts were pounding. Luo Yi looked desperate. The Prince of Sadness had just died because of what they had just said? The crowd was looking at the corpse in the small boat. They had the impression that they were dreaming. The Prince of Sadness had been killed in the blink of an eye. They didn't understand how or why. Outside of the animal world, Lin Feng was standing in the sky, waiting calmly. After a short time, a great imperial beast came out and looked at Lin Feng coldly. "Who are you, Your Excellency? What do you want?" Lin Feng looked at him and sighed. He had to force his way into the animal world. He instantly disappeared. "Where are you going?" demanded the great imperial beast. His face stiffened. However, Lin Feng had turned into a beam of light and disappeared. He couldn't stop him anymore. He charged back into the animal world and shouted furiously, "If you dare invade the animal world, you'll die." Lin Feng headed to the mountain peak he remembered. He landed in front of a thatched hut, where someone was seated cross-legged, practicing cultivation. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards and smiled. At that moment, the person opened their eyes and frowned. A terrifying strength moved towards Lin Feng. At the same time, someone shouted furiously in the distance. Many beasts hurried over there. "Master, it's me, Lin Feng," said Lin Feng to the person telepathically. That man's eyes twinkled and he shouted to the crowd, "Everybody go back." The beasts were stunned. They looked at Lin Feng sourly, but turned around and left. Lin Feng walked over to the man and sat down cross-legged. He took out some bottles of alcohol and gave one to the man. "Master, why are you looking at me like that?" "Your disguise has reached the acme of perfection," replied the leader of the animal world. "I really wonder if you're really Lin Feng." Lin Feng laughed. He waved his hands and looked normal again. He raised his glass. Both of them laughed and Lin Feng said, "After the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, the fortune shrine gave me an illusion robe. I can change my face and my chi too. It's normal that you can't recognize me." "Very good," the man nodded. The fortune shrine was indeed thoughtful. Back then, Lin Feng was young, and he didn't draw people's attention too much. But these days, everything had changed, and the fortune shrine had to protect him. "Lin Feng, you changed," sighed the old man. Lin Feng had changed in front of him. He didn't look at the old man with admiration and respect anymore. He looked at him in a comradely way, like an old friend he hadn't seen for a long time. Lin Feng laughed. He had gone through so much. He had met the leader of the king of the 10,000 beasts world, and had learned a lot then and afterwards. Chapter 2265. Great Army. Lin Feng still remembered everything the old man had done for him, and he was still touched when thinking about it. Without the old man of the animal world, Saint Shiju Lao Xian would have never helped Lin Feng in the holy city when the 4 ancient holy clans had encircled him, and later in Chi Tian Holy Town. He was still alive partly thanks to the old man. However, at the top of the Huangqi layer, many people had a countless number of friends and people willing to help them. "Master," said Lin Feng after remaining silent for a few seconds. He raised his glass, they toasted and downed their glasses, and Lin Feng asked, "Master, how is Qing Feng doing?" "She's in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. She went back to her clan." "I don't know how she is now," said the old man. Lin Feng's eyes glittered and he said, "Back then, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, there was a woman called Jing. Was she really Qing Feng's sister?" "Jing?" The old man raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. "She controls phoenix strength. She's extremely strong. She has a phoenix necklace with imprints inside." "I see. You must be right. She must be Qing Feng's sister. However, they have the same mother and different fathers," said the old man. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. Same mother, different fathers? It was usually the other way around if they were half-sisters. "I'll tell you the truth. I'm Qing Feng's biological father, and I'm not from the vast celestial ancient city. I was born in the supreme animal world," said the old man with some reluctance. Lin Feng was startled. This old man came from the supreme animal world? Qing Feng's mother is a woman from the Void Phoenix clan in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. The Void Phoenix clan's members have real and genuine phoenix blood. They are very strong in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Qing Feng is my only daughter. In the supreme animal world, I am not considered as a very strong cultivator. Therefore, I was expelled and left there. I will never be able to go back to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. If Qing Feng's mother hadn't protected me, I would have died already," said the old man slowly. Lin Feng was astonished. Such a sad story. Jing and Qing Feng have the same mother, but different fathers. Why did she come to find Qing Feng? Because her mother is also Qing Feng's mother. Their mother wants to see her daughters, and their mother has good relations with Jing. "I see," whispered Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, if you go back to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, go to the Void Phoenix clan, and go see Qing Feng. She went to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds because of you, otherwise she wouldn't have gone," the old man sighed. Lin Feng shivered. He remembered back then when she had gotten injured for him. She also wanted to finish in the top 100. That was because she wanted to find another way to go to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds? And she wanted to go there to stay with him. When Lin Feng thought about that, he felt guilty again. He owed so many people. He felt like an ingrate. "I have to sort some things out. I am about go to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. The Snow Clan and I agreed on a 20-year period. I'll also go and see Qing Feng," Lin Feng informed the old man respectfully. 20 years, time flies. "Lin Feng, will you be all right?" asked the old man, smiling at Lin Feng. "It's not a big deal," Lin Feng nodded. The old man's eyes twinkled. Lin Feng was so self-confident. Besides, he didn't understand Lin Feng's cultivation, like he had no cultivation level anymore. "Come," said the old man, raising his glass and smiling. He was inwardly amazed, and he couldn't help but think of forbidden people. Was Lin Feng a forbidden person? In the vast celestial ancient city, the Prince of Sadness had died. Many people had been astonished, especially the Moon Palace. Many people started looking for Lin Feng. Deep within the Moon Palace, a beautiful woman raised her head, her eyes glittered, and her heart was pounding. She thought of something. It seemed he was back. She fully remembered her previous humiliation. However, she had the impression everything was a dream. She sensed his presence. He was near. Behind her was a man with hair black as ink. He was standing there like her shadow. He said nothing. "You've been feeling ill at ease these years." His voice finally rose from behind her. His voice seemed to come from the netherworld. The beautiful woman was surprised. Her heart twitched. "You're being influenced by your clones?" The woman frowned and said coldly, "That's enough." The person behind her remained silent, sighing and walking away. She was startled. She turned around and thought of something, running after him. Duan Xingyi was in her palace practicing cultivation. However, at that moment, A terrifying qi filled the air and surrounded her chambers. "Who's that?" shouted Duan Xanyi coldly. However, she heard music, and her face stiffened. She said, "Master of the 9 netherworlds." Her chambers exploded with a loud boom, and demon intent filled the air. Duan Xanye's face changed drastically. "9 netherworlds, stop," said a voice coldly. Another woman arrived and shouted furiously, "If you kill her, I will never see you again." The 9 netherworlds demon landed next to Duan Xanyi and stared at her. However, he was a bit surprised and sighed. The beautiful woman took a deep breath, sweating coldly. That guy was insane. He wanted to kill Duan Xanyi. Luckily, she had reacted quickly. Duan Xanyi also had cold sweats. She looked at the 9 netherworlds demon, never thinking he'd try to kill her. "Xanyi, don't leave the moon palace," said Empress Shi. Duan Xanyi nodded. She didn't know why, though. The vast celestial ancient city was a gigantic city. After the Moon Palace and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan had reappeared, nothing extraordinary had happened there until the news spread that Chu Chunqiu, who was born there, had finished third at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and Lin Feng, the one who had been abandoned by the gods, had finished first. However, neither of them had returned since then. A group of people had arrived outside of the city. The person at the very front of the group was a Taoist priest, seated on a cloud. He was holding a whisk and smiling. "Vast celestial ancient city, the great emperor is back," murmured the Taoist priest. Behind him were many other people. All of them were incredibly strong. Walking next to him was someone all in black. "Teacher, why did Lin Feng call us here?" Fu Hei asked the old Taoist priest. "To fight, of course," replied Yan Di. "Fight? Against whom?" "He made us come back from so far away to fight," said Fu Hei. "He's my disciple. He's so strong thanks to me. Last time, at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, he finished first, but he didn't give me credit because I wasn't there. But anyway, he's my disciple, and I have to help him," said Yan Di, scratching his beard and smiling thinly. Fu Hei's mouth twitched, but he was used to hearing such things. He said, "Indeed. You are extraordinarily talented, teacher, so your disciples are incredible too." "Indeed, you're the only exception though," said Yan Di disdainfully. Then he added, "You're a miserable disciple. You're a disgrace. Without me, you'd still be a low-level emperor. Even though you're extremely stupid, I went through lots of hardships to raise you and make you stronger, and finally I managed to make you a great emperor. You were extremely lucky to meet me. Maybe you've been good in your previous lives." Yan Di said calmly. Fu Hei nodded and agreed obediently. "Without you, I wouldn't even have become an emperor." "I educated you properly," said Yan Di approvingly. The two people were talking naturally. The people behind also seemed to find their conversation natural. Down on the ground, many people raised their heads and watched them. They were astonished and started shaking at the power passing above. A few hours later, many beasts arrived, their qi terrifying. It rolled in waves and carried everything away, blotting out the sky. That group was composed of 18 people. Their qi shook everyone in the city. What's going on? People above the lake of the vast celestial ancient city were astonished, their hearts pounding. Was something big going to happen? Since that young man had come and killed the Prince of Sadness, some weird things were happening in the vast celestial ancient city. Chapter 2266. Going back to the Moon Palace in the animal world, Lin Feng's robe was fluttering in the wind at the top of a mountain. He gazed into the distance and saw a Taoist priest. He smiled thinly. "Little boy, not bad. I can't even see how strong you are anymore. No wonder. I raised you," said Yan Di, looking at Lin Feng happily. Apart from the old man of the animal world, Yan Di was the only person who knew Lin Feng was a forbidden person. Even though he was curious and didn't understand what it meant, he didn't think about it too much. "Old buddy, as humble as before, I see," Lin Feng smiled. He nodded at Yan Di and Fu Hei. He also looked over the group of people behind Yan Di. Even though there weren't many people, they were all very old, and they had all studied the rebirth scriptures. They were really strong. Yen Di looked at Lin Feng and said, "You had me come back to fight against the Moon Palace. Do you know who supports the Moon Palace? Are those stories about the 3 lives great emperor true?" Lin Feng asked. Back then, in Shuiyu, Lin Feng had read the word, "Goddess, Empress Shi's grave." Yen Di had said he had robbed it and that he had then been chased, but he hadn't revealed everything Lin Feng knew. Of course, Yen Di used to be the prince of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan, and back then the 3 Lives Emperor had destroyed the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan. Their relations were complex. The 3 Lives Emperor loved her, "That's true," said Yen Di nodding. First mystery solved, he loved her. "How strong is the 3 Lives Great Emperor?" asked Lin Feng. "Nobody can be stronger in this world," said Yen Di calmly. Lin Feng's heart began to race. The 3 Lives Great Emperor was so terrifying? I see. So why did Empress Shi die back then, when the Moon Palace was destroyed? Asked Lin Feng. Because Empress Shi hates the 3 Lives Emperor, replied Yen Di. She would never ask him for help. She hopes that someday she'll surpass him and kill him. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. What an incredible story. But Lin Feng didn't really care. He just knew that the Moon Palace had to be destroyed. So, if the 3 Lives Emperor doesn't show up, the Moon Palace will be destroyed, said Lin Feng indifferently. I had you come to ask you for something too. It's ready, said Yen Di, giving a jade talisman to Lin Feng. Lin Feng put his godly awareness inside and glanced at Yen Di. This guy understood Lin Feng. The talisman contained the rebirth scriptures. He already knew Lin Feng wanted to ask him for them. Old buddy, thank you very much, smiled Lin Feng. Even though Yen Di was annoying sometimes, he was incredibly generous. The rebirth scriptures were precious to Lin Feng. When will you be ready to attack? Asked Yen Di. Since we're all ready tomorrow. The Moon Palace must be destroyed, said Lin Feng calmly. He gazed into the distance. Xianyi was probably in the Moon Palace. He was wondering what to do with Empress Shi. Yen Di nodded. One day passed quickly. The vast celestial ancient city seemed as peaceful and calm as always. Nothing happened. However, 100 li away from the Ice Moon Lake, a group of people wearing black robes appeared. All those people were wearing dark clothes and nobody could see their faces. They looked mysterious, their chi bestial and powerful. They were waiting. At the same time, in the pavilions above the Ice Moon Lake, there were many young women dancing and young men who were watching them. Even the women who weren't from the Moon Palace looked beautiful. All the men there were staring at those women. They were all outstanding and attractive. How come there are so many people today? Asked someone out on a boat. Some celestial women from the Moon Palace are coming, so there are always more men when they show up. Which one? The few. We're lucky to be able to see them. The crowd looked impatient. The celestial women of the Moon Palace were extremely famous for their beauty. The crowd didn't notice that a young man had arrived, staring at the lake. In the pavilions, the beautiful women were still dancing. Back then, when he was here, the gods had abandoned him. He had temporarily lost hope. However, he had gotten back onto his feet and had continued fighting. Now, he had changed a lot. So many years had passed. He remembered that, but he didn't feel sad at all. He was just calm and composed. When he saw someone come out of the pavilion, he shivered. He had never forgotten. A passionate night, a couple for 100 days, such beautiful memories. Even if Lin Feng had gone through a lot in life, he couldn't forget her. Yiren Lei was even more beautiful than before. Her chi was dimly discernible. She smiled knowingly. She was bewitching, even in the middle of all those incredibly beautiful women, like a goddess. Empress She gazed into the distance and asked, "Is he here?" At the same time, Duan Xinyi was in her new chambers, and her heart was pounding. She sensed something, and Empress She didn't want her to come out. Empress She came out. Outside, the atmosphere was lively. However, some people raised their heads and gazed into the distance. How beautiful, who's that? Empress Shi, the leader of the Moon Palace. Empress She came out, and with so many beautiful women behind her, too. Everybody was looking at them. Empress She was walking slowly, and arrived in front of the pavilion in which Lei and the others were. She studied the edge of the lake, looking for someone. Finally, she noticed Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes gleamed. Empress, she could recognize him? Actually, it was her instinct. Empress, she looked at Lin Feng and he also looked back at her calmly. She couldn't see how strong he was. You came back, Empress, she said suddenly. Everybody turned and looked at Lin Feng. Who was this guy? Surprisingly, Empress, she came out personally to see him. I'm back, Lin Feng nodded. She had indeed recognized him. Back then, I could have killed you, but I wasn't cruel enough, Empress, she sighed. She didn't know why she had never killed him. Lin Feng knew she was right, but he said, You missed your chance. Now, you'll never have the opportunity ever again. Is that so? Asked Empress Shi. His cultivation level was hidden. She didn't know how strong he was. In 20 years, could Lin Feng have become strong enough to compete with her? Behind Empress Shi, Lei's heart was pounding. How familiar a voice, her heart started pounding. Was it him? You've become extremely self-confident since you finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, said Empress Shi calmly. People's hearts pounded even more furiously. First at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds? 10 years before, in the top 3 of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, 2 cultivators were from the Dark Night region, one was even from the vast celestial ancient city, and the other one had amazed the vast celestial ancient city at some point in his life. One of them had been abandoned by the gods back then by the lake. He hadn't been cleansed by the cosmic energies of the earth and sky. There were many legends about him, even children could tell those stories. Was he back? Was it him? Everybody looked at Lin Feng in a different way. That guy was Lin Feng? Lei's heart was pounding even more. That was Lin Feng? Lin Feng didn't admit who he was, but he didn't deny it either. He just looked at Empress Shi calmly and said, I came to destroy the Moon Palace today. Destroy the Moon Palace? How audacious! Murmured the crowd. Even if he was Lin Feng, that was too arrogant. The Moon Palace was extremely strong. They were more powerful than ancient holy clans. Empress Shi's eyes glittered. Destroy the Moon Palace? What makes you feel so confident? She asked indifferently. Chapter 2267. Heaven Clan's appearance. Lin Feng looked back at Empress Shi calmly. He knew that Empress Shi had given up everything, had died and sealed herself in the 3 lives scriptures. She was stubborn. She wouldn't dismantle the Moon Palace willingly. A strong wind started blowing. People appeared on the horizon. The atmosphere became oppressive. Celestial Evolution Holy Clan? Empress Shi was startled. She saw Yen Di, her eyes glittering, and said, You think a few cripples can destroy the Moon Palace? The Moon Palace will disappear from the vast celestial ancient city, said the old man of the animal world in the distance. A group of terrifying beasts also appeared. Animal world, aren't you afraid of the consequences? Asked Empress Shi coldly. I dissolved the animal world, I am free and unfettered now, said the old man indifferently. Empress Shi was astonished. Shooting sounds cut through the air, and more people in black robes appeared. Their chi was bestial. They were terrifyingly strong beasts, including some celestial imperial beasts. Their chi was terrifying. Who could compete with them? What a terrifying army. Since Lin Feng ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, 3 influential groups agreed to help him destroy the Moon Palace. It's the Moon Palace's Judgment Day. When Empress Shi saw this, she remained silent. The celestial women of the Moon Palace were staring at Lin Feng, especially Lei. She remembered back in the days when they used to make love in the snow. Lin Feng was already obstinate and unruly back then. Now he had progressed so much. In less than 20 years, he had become so strong that he could land in front of the Moon Palace with an army. How domineering! Lin Feng had changed so much. He now looked calm, aloof, and self-confident. Go and kill him, ordered Empress Shi coldly. Instantly, a few celestial women ran forwards to kill him. They were all great emperors already, and they all knew many terrifying ancient scriptures, spells, skills, and techniques. and they all had their own Dao already. Their qi surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at those women calmly. He absorbed all the Dao which surrounded him. The women sensed that and were astonished. Now, they could also sense the terrifying strength in Lin Feng's body. "Piss off," said Lin Feng aggressively. He released a terrifying Dao strength which thundered out, his voice also carrying an explosive, ancient strength. He instantly destroyed their attacks and injured them. Everybody was trembling, especially when they saw the celestial women of the Moon Palace cough up blood. They looked so weak in front of Lin Feng. Many men wanted to avenge them and attack Lin Feng. Screams kept spreading in the air. The celestial women fell down from the sky one after the other, their faces as pale as sheets of paper. They couldn't compete with Lin Feng. He was terrifyingly strong and he could kill them easily. Empress, she looked at him coldly. She realized Lin Feng had changed completely. He was terrifyingly strong now, not a weak little boy anymore. According to rumors, 10 years after the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, Chu Chunqiu is practicing cultivation in the supreme animal world. He's practicing really hard, and now he's become a celestial emperor. Now Lin Feng, the first emperor of the continent of the 9 clouds, has become a terrifying fighter, muttered many people after seeing his voice attack. He hadn't only come back with a powerful army, he had also become incredibly strong. A terrifying qi emerged from the Moon Palace. Many people rose up into the air, their energies rumbling as they were unleashed. Their qi was impressive, especially Chu the Insaints. He was a descendant of King Chu, one of the 2 most outstanding geniuses in the history of the Chu clan. If he hadn't gone insane, the Moon Palace wouldn't have been able to control him. But it didn't matter now, because Chu Chunqiu had already surpassed Chu the Insane by far. The Moon Palace has always had talented individuals in hiding. Those people are really strong. They're all celestial emperors, at least. They're controlled by the Moon Palace. They have no way to free themselves. Dear friends, if you help us today, the Moon Palace will give you many ancient scriptures and will also let you get married to our celestial women, Empress, she offered at that moment calmly. Many men were immediately aroused. However, against such terrifying cultivators, ordinary people couldn't do much. This is between the Moon Palace and me, Lin Feng. If anyone helps them, I'll kill them instantly, said Lin Feng calmly. His qi surged around him. It seemed like a great war was on the verge of breaking out. Many strong cultivators had gathered around the Ice Moon Lake. Even some people from powerful groups were there. Their elders had informed them about the situation, so they had come to watch. When they heard Empress Shi, they were excited for a few seconds, but most people didn't want to get involved in the end. The enemies were too scary. However, some people still had some thoughts, such as the members of the Heaven clan. Song Ling was in the crowd, and staring at Lin Feng coldly. Back in the days, he had chased Lin Feng, trying to kill him. However, he hadn't had the opportunity. Lin Feng had become so strong, so quickly. He needed to get rid of him as soon as possible now. If Lin Feng broke through to the Tiandi layer, he wouldn't be able to kill him anymore. If the Heaven clan helped the Moon Palace, they'd probably kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and he's a member of the Fortune Shrine. Now he's a core disciple of the Fortune Shrine. I need to get rid of him. If he dies outside, the Fortune Shrine won't avenge him, I hope. They'll just say he was too weak if he died outside, right? Thought Song Ling, before looking at the Saint Emperor of the Heaven clan. Uncle, we don't like Lin Feng. We can't let him become stronger. We must get rid of him now. It's an opportunity. What do we do if the Fortune Shrine comes to avenge him? Said the Saint Emperor. I'll kill him. If the Fortune Shrine comes, I'll say I killed him, said Song Ling coldly. He had to stamp out the source of trouble and kill Lin Feng. Uncle, the Moon Palace is powerful, you know that. We can collaborate with them. It would be great for the Heaven clan. You know Lin Feng has to die. Continued Song Ling, as you wish, said the old man, but he hesitated. Lin Feng had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and he was now a member of the Fortune Shrine. Killing him was dangerous. But if they didn't kill him, Lin Feng might remember them and come and destroy them, especially that now he wanted to destroy the Moon Palace. An old man called out to Lin Feng, "Lin Feng, my boy." Lin Feng turned around and saw an old man standing behind Song Ling. Lin Feng said coldly, "Heaven Clan." "Yes, Lin Feng, my boy. Back then, tensions arose between you and my clan. It was all my fault. Let's forget about those things." "I'm really old now," said the old man. Lin Feng understood what the old man was thinking. He looked at him and the strong cultivators behind him. He smiled coldly inside. If he refused, what would happen? How sly. "We'll talk about that after I'm done with the Moon Palace," said Lin Feng calmly. They posed a big threat to him. The man shook his head. "I hope you can hurry and make up your mind." "I know you want me to refuse, and I do. I refuse," said Lin Feng aggressively and sharply. The old man released his chi and said, "Since it's that way, the Heaven Clan will join hands with the Moon Palace." I had forgotten about the Heaven Clan at the beginning. I just remembered Song Ling. I didn't expect the Heaven Clan would get involved. "Foolish," said Lin Feng coldly. The strong cultivators of the Heaven Clan were stunned. Lin Feng had forgotten about the Heaven Clan? They had just reminded him of their existence? Now they were enemies? Now they had to kill him. They had reached a point of no return. "Song Ling, he's yours. Slaughter him," the old man said to Song Ling telepathically. Song Ling nodded, staring at Lin Feng, his eyes filled with murder. Chapter 2268. Lin Feng's fighting abilities. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Song Ling, a celestial emperor, and a strong kind of celestial emperor. After all, he had broken through to that cultivation layer a long time ago. Song Ling was standing in the sky. He shot forwards and released an oppressive strength around Lin Feng. He said coldly, "First Emperor of the continent of the 9 clouds? So what? You'll die here now." He shouted furiously and lashed out. Heavenly hands appeared and blotted out the sky, reaching towards Lin Feng, trying to crush him. At the same time, Song Ling wasn't assured, so he continued racing towards Lin Feng while releasing terrifying heaven cosmic energies. Lin Feng raised his hands and punched Song Ling's fists. There was an eruption as their fists collided. The heavenly hands exploded. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng's fighting abilities were incredible. He could easily destroy a celestial emperor's attacks. Song Ling descended from the sky and moved towards Lin Feng. Clouds appeared and a strong wind started blowing, fluttering Lin Feng's hair and robe. He could sense how strong the energies were. The ground exploded, and many people ran away. Some strong cultivators were too close and exploded. Blood gushed everywhere. That attack was purely physical, and it had crushed them and their souls. Lin Feng looked small amid that rain of flesh and blood. At that moment, the atmosphere changed. Song Ling realized that everything was changing around them, as if they had ended up in another world. Suddenly, he was a great distance from Lin Feng. He shattered the confining space, and finally, Lin Feng reappeared normally at the same distance as him, so he ran withdraw. The great empty space technique had been broken instantly by Song Ling. Song Ling looked around. The others were not there. He exclaimed, "Territory strength?" "It's not territory strength, it's a world," said Lin Feng calmly. There was nothing but beautiful mountains and rivers around them. However, they weren't in the outside world. They were in Lin Feng's world. "A world?" Song Ling frowned, staring at Lin Feng. "How is that possible? You probably used a great imperial weapon." "Indeed, but that weapon is now surrounding us. We're in a remote world now," said Lin Feng. Song Ling didn't believe him. However, he was there to kill Lin Feng, not to think. "No matter what, I'll kill you," said Song Ling coldly. He ran forwards, his Tao strength surging up. However, he realized that his heaven strength didn't work here. "Since I've broken through to this mysterious cultivation layer, I haven't really fought. We'll see what it's like," said Lin Feng calmly. Around him, there was no spirit, no shadow, only strength which started condensing. He was a god in this world. He controlled everything. He was at the heart of every kind of strength, every kind of cosmic energy. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards. He was walking, but he was extremely fast. Song Ling sensed a terrifying strength. Since I've leveled up and broken through to this mysterious cultivation layer? There was the Di Qi layer after the Huang Qi layer, wasn't there? Lin Feng didn't know what it meant to be a forbidden person. He had no cultivation level? He wasn't sure, he just couldn't explain it. His Dao, however, had finally become complete. It contained all sorts of strength, all sorts of cosmic energies, the strength of the 10,000 things of creation. He was like a god in his world. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards and suddenly disappeared. Song Ling's heart started pounding. After that, a shadow appeared and grew in front of him. He only saw a fist moving towards his head. It contained death sword strength as well as cursing and soundwave strength. Song Ling felt hopeless. "No!" shouted Song Ling desperately. But how is this possible? Song Ling condensed a terrifying Heaven Dao strength in his fist, exploding against the incoming force. Lin Feng had disappeared already, and Song Ling's attack instantly broke apart. His face turned deathly pale as panic set in. He forgot how to fight at that moment. He even forgot he was a celestial emperor. Actually, even though Lin Feng had broken through, the speed at which he became stronger was still limited. Before breaking through, he could easily kill celestial emperors, and afterwards, his cultivation had become more stable and he had become slightly stronger. Now, he was about as strong as a cultivator at the top of the Tiandi layer. Of course, apart from his attacks, Lin Feng's body and his special strength had also increased. In his dreams, he had been bombarded by dark lightning. He had a special kind of strength in his body now, and he had used it when the celestial women had attacked him before. In addition, his physical strength was still incredible. He had the physical strength of a celestial emperor too. Even though Lin Feng had no cultivation level, his strength could be compared to the strength of someone who had the strength at the top of the Tiandi layer. With such strength, he could easily kill Song Ling. Another terrifying strength bombarded Song Ling. He was smashed brutally away. However, Lin Feng reappeared in front of him. When Song Ling saw how calm and composed Lin Feng looked, he was even more terrified. "I thought you were definitely going to kill me," said Lin Feng calmly. His voice resonated in Song Ling's head. "I will show you what strength is." Terrifying lights appeared and moved towards Song Ling. "Roar!" Song Ling shouted furiously. He condensed more heaven strength, but he didn't control strength in there. He released as much strength as he could. It turned into a terrifying cloud of Dao. Lin Feng moved as fast as lightning, raising his fist and condensing strength in it. 9 words appeared around him. He used his celestial stage deployment spell, and he condensed deployment spell Forbidden Lightnings, too. Song Ling's heaven fist broke apart instantly and he retreated. However, Lin Feng was too fast. A terrifying punch struck him and pierced through his neck. His back was turned to Lin Feng, and he saw a fist appear in front of his head. It had pierced through his neck from behind and out the other side. Lin Feng's fist was like a sword. He looked hopeless. How was this possible? He was completely powerless in front of Lin Feng, and Lin Feng could easily destroy him. "You wanted to die," Lin Feng told him evenly, and then punched his head again. In the outside world, a great war had started. Where Lin Feng was, a curtain made of illusion strength had appeared, and nobody knew what was going on inside. That illusion had the shape of Fortune City. The illusion began to disperse. Many people suddenly turned around and saw Lin Feng appear, and he was alone. "Song Ling," the crowd frowned. Lin Feng stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. "Lin Feng killed Song Ling?" blurted out many people shocked. Song Ling was terrifyingly strong, a public figure in the vast celestial ancient city. However, he had disappeared and probably been killed. "He must have used a precious treasure," hissed some people. Lin Feng's fighting abilities couldn't be as terrifying as Chu Chun Chio's. The strong cultivators of the Heaven clan grimaced. Lin Feng was back, and Song Ling was probably dead since he wasn't there. In the distance, some strong cultivators appeared. They were from the Heaven clan, and were furious. "Who killed my son Song Ling?" When the crowd heard that, they shivered. As expected, Song Ling was dead, and his father had arrived. "Lin Feng, you want to die," swore Songling's uncle coldly. A huge army of the Heaven Clan had arrived. They were going to help the Moon Palace and destroy these people. "Umph." Lin Feng grunted coldly. He wanted to see how strong the Heaven Clan could be. Apart from the strongest of them, the rest were only cannon fodder. Chapter 2269. I'll keep you as a slave. Everybody had moved far away from the Ice Moon Lake. The atmosphere was explosive, and the battles were deadly. Nobody dared stay there. Lin Feng didn't even look at the Heaven Clan's members. The ancient holy clans of the vast celestial ancient city were too weak. Even if the Heaven Clan had a Saint Emperor, it didn't matter because he was alone. 3 of Lin Feng's protectors who were celestial imperial beasts could join hands and easily defeat an ordinary Saint Emperor like the one from the Heaven Clan. Even some of the celestial emperors of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan were terrifying. Therefore, the Heaven Clan didn't frighten Lin Feng. Lin Feng was standing on the edge of the Ice Moon Lake. He looked at the beautiful woman, Empress Shi, and the 9 Netherworlds Emperor was like her shadow. "Without you, the Moon Palace can't exist," Lin Feng said to Empress Shi calmly. He released Qi in a great pulse. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor jumped in front of Empress Shi without hesitation. "Good heavens, the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Back in the days we were a bit famous. We've both died once and now, here we meet again. Let's see who's become stronger between you and me," said Yen Di calmly. They had both died in the past, especially the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Without the rebirth scriptures, he would just be a thread of consciousness. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor looked at Yen Di. The source of the 9 Netherworlds appeared in his eyes. He started singing the 9 Netherworlds song. Sound waves surrounded Yen Di. A huge sun appeared behind Yen Di, dazzling and scorching hot. The 9 Netherworlds' strength started burning. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Yen Di moved towards each other. The water of the Ice Moon Lake churned beneath them. Very quickly, only Lin Feng and Empress Shi were left on the ground. "Empress Shi, you stole my wife. I'll keep you as a slave. It will be deep love between you and me," said Lin Feng evenly. Empress Shi's face shifted. A cold qi filled the air around her, emotionless Tao power, and moved towards Lin Feng. This bastard dared say he wanted to keep her as a slave for deep love? "Show me if you're strong enough to talk to me," said Empress Shi coldly. She flashed away, and emotionless strength swept out. Lin Feng sensed her emotionless strength, and suddenly felt ice cold. Empress Shi accelerated, landing in front of Lin Feng. Her emotionless strength turned into a terrifying sword. She wanted to cut apart Lin Feng's body and soul, freeze him so hard his blood stopped flowing. Lin Feng's godly awareness started intertwining. A dazzling golden light flashed. Lin Feng stretched out his hand, also releasing a sharp sword. Their strength collided and exploded. Empress Shi disappeared, and after that, the crowd saw many Empress Shi's shadows everywhere. "How beautiful!" Lin Feng glanced at them, and the atmosphere around them changed. The Fortune City illusion came down again. Lin Feng walked forwards. The strength of the 10,000 things of creation turned into life and death Tao. His Tao's strength fused together with his forbidden strength and surrounded everything. There were cracking sounds as Empress Shi's shadows broke apart one after another. Only her real body was left. She was so beautiful, but at that moment, the death energies had corroded her body. His death Tao has reached the maximum level. He also controls a terrifying kind of destructive strength, thought Empress Shi, shaking. How was that possible? How had Lin Feng become so strong? She was a genius, too. She was extremely strong back then when Lin Feng was young and weak. How had he surpassed her? "You hate me that much?" Empress Shi asked Lin Feng. She sighed. Her emotionless strength disappeared. Lin Feng frowned. Empress Shi said calmly, "My 2 clones are your wives. They've seen you grow up, however, we had no choice but to be enemies. You know how I feel?" Lin Feng was astonished as he stared at Empress Shi. Xan Yi and Qiu Yu Xan were his wives. They loved him, and Empress Shi had always sensed it. Lin Feng hadn't known that. Empress Shi slowly descended to the ground. Suddenly, Lin Feng saw Xan Yi and Qiu Yu Xan, two illusions. You studied the 3 live scriptures, you must know that what they've experienced, I experienced too. I don't want to be your enemy, you know? Empress Shi said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded, he sensed that she had feelings. Empress Shi looked at Lin Feng's face. He had the impression she was his wife too. At that moment, Lin Feng's heart softened. He almost forgot he hated her. However, at that moment he sensed danger. A deadly emotionless strength shot towards him, like a sharp sword. However, he could still see love in her eyes. Something was wrong. Emotion Dao. Lin Feng was astonished. Empress Shi knew both emotionless and emotion Dao. A terrifying emotionless strength crashed onto Lin Feng's body. But Empress Shi's face suddenly changed, because she realized that Lin Feng's body was extremely hard. Her energies couldn't pierce through his skin. Lin Feng had condensed gold cosmic energies. When did you study gold-type cosmic energies? Empress Shi's face stiffened. She thought she understood Lin Feng's cultivation because Qiu Yu Xan had always been with him. She knew his weaknesses. Therefore, she had given up emotionless Dao and had studied emotion Dao. Initially, it wasn't on purpose, it was because she really loved him. Lin Feng was sane and determined. He could still sense her emotions, but they were fake. Because of that, she had had the opportunity to attack. Even if the strength hadn't destroyed him, as long as it could pierce through him, that would have been fine, but it hadn't. Gold cosmic energies were almost indestructible, but why did Lin Feng know gold cosmic energies? I understand the cosmic energies of the 5 elements, said Lin Feng calmly. His hands grabbed Empress Shi, and he hugged her. He released overwhelming destructive death strength and forbidden strength, which penetrated into her body. Empress Shi's face was frozen. She didn't dare move. Let me go, she cried out. She never thought she'd fail so miserably. Lin Feng's physical strength and gold-type strength were just too incredible. She couldn't injure him at all. Lin Feng was tightly hugging her. Empress Shi released a massive emotionless intent. Lin Feng firmly held her, smiling, and said, Indeed, Xan Yi and Yu Xan are my wives. Tell me, what can I do regarding the connection you have to them? Empress Shi's face slightly changed. She looked at Lin Feng's smile. She had the impression she was going insane. She struggled to get away. You're so beautiful, you'll be my love slave. How nice, said Lin Feng with a smile. He started kissing Empress Shi's mouth. She was petrified, her face all pale. Her eyes rolled helplessly. You'll die, she shouted furiously. She released a terrifying chi, but Lin Feng countered with a massive death strength which brought her come back to her senses. She had made a mistake. She had released emotion strength. It was too late to regret. You know about everything that happened between my wives and me. I will keep you as a love slave, said Lin Feng, smiling heartlessly. Empress Shi was scared to death. She whispered, Try and dare. Why wouldn't I dare? Said Lin Feng. You'll become my love slave. That way, you won't be able to make my wives leave me, because you'll stand by me like a good girl. If you dare touch me, I'll kill you, said Empress Shi, releasing more and more emotionless chi. Will you feel like leaving me then, though? Lin Feng asked coldly, I'll first take you to my world. I will do exactly what I said. After that, they appeared in another world. In the outside world, the 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Yen Di were fighting. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor could still oppress Yen Di, but he was worried about Empress Shi. He looked at the Fortune City illusion and said, Destroy the illusion. The strong cultivators of the Moon Palace rushed over. However, the strong cultivators of the animal world and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan could stop them. They surrounded them, but at that moment, the illusion disappeared. Chapter 2270. The Moon Palace dismantled. The crowd watched the city illusion disappear, and Lin Feng reappeared. Lin Feng was alone. Empress Shi had disappeared. All right, everybody can disperse, said Lin Feng indifferently. Everybody stopped fighting. Many strong cultivators looked at Lin Feng. Had Lin Feng killed Empress Shi? Without Empress Shi, could the Moon Palace exist? A terrifying strength charged towards Lin Feng. Sky-absorbing strength surrounded him. Chu the Insane shot towards Lin Feng. Umph! The old man of the animal world grunted coldly and jumped in front of him. They collided. At the same time, a strong cultivator of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan jumped forwards, and they encircled Chu the Insane. The 9 Netherworlds song resonated in Lin Feng's brain. A pair of pitch-black eyes stared at him. 9 Netherworlds Master, so many years have passed, wake up. Why act like that? Lin Feng said to the Netherworld Demon Emperor. Lin Feng also released 9 Netherworld strength. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had transmitted the 9 Netherworlds song to Lin Feng many years ago. Master, you transmitted the 9 Netherworlds song to me back then, but you used the rebirth scriptures to come back to life, and your cultivation is restricted. You can't do much to me. Forget about it, said Lin Feng calmly. The Netherworld Demon Emperor raced towards Lin Feng, releasing 9 Netherworld strength towards Lin Feng. However, at the same time, Lin Feng released Restriction, Death Dao, and 9 Netherworld strength. How miserable! Lin Feng walked forwards like a god. He suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Dazzling lights flared blindingly. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Lin Feng collided. The Emperor groaned with pain. His body felt numb. Lin Feng's fighting abilities were terrifying many people. Lin Feng had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. He had disappeared for so many years, and now that he was back, his fighting abilities had become even more terrifying. He was even stronger than Chu Chunqiu who, according to legends, had a forbidden body. The Fortune Shrine had done that on purpose. Many people believed that Chu Chunqiu, who practiced cultivation in the supreme animal world, had a forbidden body. The Netherworld Demon Emperor was knocked away by Lin Feng. The Netherworld Demon Emperor looked at Lin Feng coldly, and threw himself at Lin Feng again. Umph! Lin Feng groaned coldly. He shouted furiously, "World of the living imprints!" Imprints appeared, a death world appeared and surrounded his opponent. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had used the rebirth scriptures to come back to life. His strength wasn't as good as back in the old days. He couldn't compete with Lin Feng. The world of the living imprints contained death strength. They pounded the Netherworld Demon Emperor. His organs twitched violently and he was driven back again. Some of his organs exploded, and he coughed up blood. His face turned gray. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's attacks contained an incredible amount of strength. He was like a god of the 10,000 things of creation. How confusing, how complex. He never thought that this young man would ever become this strong. On top of that, he had killed Empress Shi. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the other battles. He rose up higher in the air. He shot towards the Saint Emperor of the Heaven Clan. At that moment, 3 terrifying celestial imperial beasts were fighting against the Heaven Clan's Saint Emperor. He was encircled. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng. The 3 celestial imperial beasts had terrifying fighting abilities. The Heaven Clan's Saint Emperor wasn't a very strong Saint Emperor. Bestial chi had filled the air and surrounded him. Golden lights flashed as they fought against him. The Saint Emperor shouted furiously. He released Heaven's strength, which turned into an armor and protected him. At the same time, he punched out all around him. The earth and sky were trembling. Lin Feng released the strength of the 10,000 things of creation, and deployment marks started intertwining. Holy spirits appeared as an ancient chi filled the air. All those kinds of strength fused together in his hands. I know, I'll call you Godly Dao, and my cultivation level, I will call you God level. Now, it's only the early stage. With my body, I can control every kind of strength, and I will keep becoming stronger, thought Lin Feng. He released forbidden strength, which condensed into his hands as well. He disappeared and reappeared in front of the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor stared at Lin Feng. He condensed heaven's strength in his hands, as if he controlled the strength of heaven and earth, then he punched out in Lin Feng's direction. The earth and sky crackled. Their fists collided, a terrifying strength exploded. Many people around sensed those terrifying energies. Could Lin Feng compete with the Saint Emperor too? Die! shouted Lin Feng furiously. A terrifying death strength penetrated into his opponent's body. His strength pressed forward with an indomitable will. The man felt horribly oppressed. At the same time, the three celestial imperial beasts also attacked, and the Heaven Clan's strong cultivator's face turned deathly pale. A dazzling fire sword appeared and pierced through the Saint Emperor's head. Many Heaven Ancient imprints appeared, but a great rock released sword strength which cut apart his imprints and destroyed them. At the same time, the two other terrifying celestial imperial beasts also used their most powerful attacks. Energies exploded catastrophically. The Saint Emperor looked hopeless. He was staring at Lin Feng, his eyes bloodshot. He gave up everything and released all his heaven strength towards Lin Feng. He just wanted to kill Lin Feng. He didn't care about the others anymore. The energy of the 10,000 things of creation became golden. Lin Feng took out his plated bamboo hat and cloak from the fortune shrine and put them on. The terrifying ancient imprints contained sword strength and struck Lin Feng. However, the attack was not effective at all. The golden great rock sword pierced through the opponent's head, and at the same time, the two other beasts also attacked his head. They tore apart his skull, then ripped him in two at his waist, before tearing his body into several parts. Lin Feng smashed the skull violently. The Saint Emperor was resistant, and killing him wasn't easy. Lin Feng used a godly attack. The crowd was astonished when they saw those three beasts and that human being attack the Saint Emperor, their faces frozen in disbelief. Impossible. Their hearts were pounding furiously. He was done, dead. When the Saint Emperor died, the other members of the Heaven Clan were suddenly terrified. After he disappeared, Lin Feng and the others glanced at the battlefield coldly for a moment, then continued moving. They went after another Saint Emperor. That Saint Emperor retreated and immediately fled. The last Saint Emperor wanted to escape as well. It wasn't easy to become a Saint Emperor. How could he take risks? Two Saint Emperors were fleeing. The battle was becoming easier and easier. After killing the Heaven Clan's Saint Emperors, only those controlled by the Moon Palace were left. They were among the strongest cultivators of the Moon Palace. Back then, the ancient holy clans were under the command of the Moon Palace. Now, the Animal World and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan had dismantled the Moon Palace. The palace had no influence anymore, and the celestial women of the Moon Palace were not strong enough to fight them. Lin Feng was standing in the sky. He looked at the celestial women and the others and said, "You have the time needed to burn a joss stick to leave. The Moon Palace doesn't exist anymore." Yiren Lei raised her head and looked at Lin Feng. Back then, when he was here by the lake, he looked hopeless. And now, he had dismantled the Moon Palace. Lin Feng walked towards the Moon Palace, releasing his godly awareness and inspecting every single corner of it. His silhouette flickered, and very quickly he found the main palace. He opened all the rooms and quickly found a beautiful woman. Lin Feng. Duan Xingyi was astonished when she saw him. Her eyes instantly became red, her vision blurry. Finally, the figure she had seen in her dreams was here. Xingyi. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered. He immediately jumped out and took her hand. Xingyi felt so sad, she said to Lin Feng, "Lin Feng, I might not be able to control myself anymore soon." "No. I imprisoned Empress Shi," said Lin Feng, caressing her cheeks. "Let's go out." He brought Xingyi outside. He turned about and released destructive strength, destroying the moon palaces. Outside, the atmosphere had calmed down. Apart from Chu the Insane and some others, everybody had almost left. A terrifying attack struck Chu the Insane, and more people encircled him. He shouted furiously and turned into a beam of light, escaping. Nobody prevented him from leaving. Without Empress Shi, the Moon Palace didn't exist anymore. The battle was over, but the Watchers' hearts kept pounding violently. So many terrifying people had died, especially the strong cultivators of the Heaven Clan. It had been a tragedy for them. Yiren Lei and the Netherworld Demon Emperor were still there. Lin Feng just glanced at them, and afterwards he said to his friends, "Master, old buddy, come with me, we're going to destroy the Heaven Clan." "All right," said the old man of the animal world agreeably. Lin Feng waved, and the 18 beasts in black clothes and the old leader of the animal world followed him. They were on their way to the Heaven Clan. The people on the ground were astonished. How dreadful! The Heaven Clan was going to be destroyed. Chapter 2271. What are emotions? Lin Feng was standing in the sky, his robe fluttering in the wind. The one who used to be a weak young man now had the potential to become a peerless cultivator someday. He was already standing among some of the strongest cultivators in the world. He looked at the 9 Netherworld's emperor and said, "You should understand that considering the relationship I have to Empress Shi, I won't kill her. However, I can't let her go either." The 9 Netherworld's emperor's cold expression faded. He looked at Lin Feng with mixed feelings. After a few minutes, he said slowly, "You Shi and I have an innocent affection for each other. We were childhood sweethearts. She's pure, innocent, and kind. She doesn't understand the complex relations people can have. However, one day her father killed her mother and wanted to take her away. From that day, Yushi changed. She became cold and detached. She gradually changed her way of practicing cultivation and finally left her family forever. I know that she wasn't willing to do those things. I'm the same as Yushi, I'm ordinary. However, I saw her change more and more. So, I decided to become a demon too. To become strong, I gave up everything else. Finally, I became a strong demon. However, I realized that I couldn't become stronger than Yushi's father. Yushi knew she wasn't talented enough, so she decided to die," said the 9 Netherworld's emperor slowly. These stories were old. Everybody was ordinary at the beginning of their lives, no matter how talented they were. Lin Feng could understand that because of his own experience, and also because he had experienced the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. He also knew that ordinary people could also rise up, step, by going through lots of difficulties. Lin Feng, Yushi has had many opportunities to kill you, but she hasn't. Nobody understands her because she tries to control her passion, anger, and greed, in other words, her red dust. I also know that because of her 2 clones, she has emotions and feelings. She's been influenced by her clones. Therefore, she couldn't kill you. I hope that you'll treat her fairly and kindly," said the 9 Netherworld's emperor calmly. A terrifying pitch-black fire began burning around his body. Lin Feng frowned. "I'm already dead. I came back to life thanks to the rebirth scriptures, but there are limits. I can't protect Yushi. I couldn't do much for her or stop you. My life has become pointless. You have to protect her. I hope she'll see you become strong. I hope you'll treat her as your wife and treat her fairly. I feel sad for her," said the 9 Netherworld's emperor. His body was burning more and more, his whole body became illusionary. He was slowly disappearing as he stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng could see from his eyes how deeply he cared about Empress Shi. "Treat Yushi kindly and fairly," said the 9 Netherworld's emperor while disappearing. He turned into a pond of 9 Netherworld's water and moved towards Lin Feng, penetrated into his body, and then disappeared forever. Many people were astonished and speechless. The 9 Netherworld's emperor had decided to die. He had turned into Dao and had granted that Dao to Lin Feng for the sake of Empress Shi. True emotions. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He sensed that his 9 Netherworld strength had suddenly increased greatly. He knew the 9 Netherworld's emperor was extremely sad, and for Empress Shi, he had decided to die. He had dedicated his life to Empress Shi. I thought that the Netherworld Demon Emperor had met Empress Shi much later in life, and that he had then fallen in love with her. I never thought that they had known each other for so long. So they lived separated for a while, and then he came back, sighed an old man. Only the Netherworld Demon Emperor and Empress Shi knew the exact details of their story. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had told some of the details a moment before, and then he had died. Yendi was astonished too. He had made some strong cultivators of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan go to the Heaven Clan. He didn't go there. When he saw that the 9 Netherworld's emperor had turned into Dao's strength and penetrated into Lin Feng's body, he sighed, "What are emotions?" He was a great demon emperor, and now he is dead. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had dedicated his life to Empress Shi, and now he had died for her too. Empress Shi was in Lin Feng's spirit's world. She had a jade necklace around her neck, and suddenly it broke apart. Her heart started pounding, she couldn't believe it. She put her hands on her necklace, her face paled. Tears appeared in her eyes. She hadn't cried for 1,000 years, but now she was crying again. "Brother Netherworlds," shouted Empress Shi hoarsely. It was so painful. She fell down onto her knees. She remembered those beautiful times, those flourishing periods, when both of them used to laugh a lot. She had cherished those moments, those were the best times in her life, and now the man who she considered the sunshine of her life was dead. "I'm sorry." Empress She put her hands on her head, kissing her jade necklace. She cried unceasingly and said in a fragile voice, "Brother Netherworlds, I'm so sorry. I've always considered you as my biological brother, but when we found each other again after such a long time, I never smiled at you again. I'm so sorry." She kept crying, her heart ached. Empress Shi had always considered the 9 Netherworlds Emperor as her own brother. He was the closest person she had in life, and now he was dead. She was alone. She didn't look like a strong, cold, and detached woman at that moment. She looked like a fragile little girl, lost and hopeless. In the outside world, Lin Feng sighed, speechless. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor really loved you, Shi. It was both touching and moving. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor had become a part of Lin Feng. He hoped Lin Feng would take care of Empress Shi and treat her fairly. Lin Feng had to treat Empress Shi as one of his own wives. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. It was a beautiful day. Lin Feng looked at Ren Lei. He smiled broadly, enough to melt an iceberg. That smile was the most beautiful smile Ren Lei had ever seen in her life, and she started crying. Ren Lei, who was strong and determined, started crying like a little girl too. "How have you been all these years?" Lin Feng asked her. "Tired, but I've progressed a lot," said Ren Lei, forcing herself to smile. "What do you intend to do in the future?" asked Lin Feng. Ren Lei looked pensive, but then she smiled at Lin Feng in a seductive way, looking devastatingly beautiful, and said, "I'll continue progressing on my path. I'll become an ice and snow goddess, and I'll wait for my demon prince, like we promised each other." She turned around and left, looking confident and at ease. She was still smiling, but she also had tears in her eyes. What were emotions? Emotions were more powerful than life and death. Lin Feng watched Ren Lei slowly disappear into the distance. He took a deep breath and thought, "Take care." Lin Feng had gone through so much in life. There had been so many changes in his life. "I would have kept her," said Yan Di indifferently. Lin Feng looked at him and said, "Old buddy, haven't you found someone you like?" "No hurry, another 1,000 years, or a reincarnation maybe," said Yan Di, smiling in a free and unrestrained way. "By the way, don't forget what the diviner said back in the day. I'm your protector, so you have to help me. When will you bring me to the diviner? I need to see him." What he said is almost a promise. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. Yan Di wanted to see the diviner? Did the diviner mean that back then? Lin Feng asked speechlessly. "Do you think a little boy like you can help me change my destiny?" "Hilarious," replied Yan Di, rolling his eyes. Lin Feng was speechless for a moment, but finally nodded and said, "All right, I'll take you to the fortune shrine." "You're a good boy," said Yan Di plainly, and then he burst into laughter. He flew towards the moon palace, wondering if there were treasures inside. Lin Feng looked after him, stunned. Fu Hei laughed and followed his master. "Like teacher, like disciple," said Lin Feng speechlessly. The others wanted to go into the palace as well, but didn't dare because of Lin Feng. Lin Feng had changed. Back in the days, people in the vast celestial ancient city could bully him. Now he could destroy the moon palace, the heaven clan. A strong wind was blowing and brushing against people's bodies. The vast celestial ancient city had been peaceful and calm for a long time, and now new incredible things had happened. It wouldn't take long for the news to spread that the Heaven Clan had been wiped off the map of the continent. Chapter 2272. Feeling unsafe in the vast celestial ancient city, Lin Feng had dismantled the Moon Palace and saved Xanyi. He felt relieved. Lin Feng didn't stop in the vast celestial ancient city. The 20-year period was slowly approaching. Lin Feng wanted to go to the Holy Spirit Dynasty to see Qiongsheng, and then to the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds with Yan Di. He also wanted to inform Shiju Lao Xian that he intended to go to the Snow Clan. In Qitian Holy Town, all the dynasties had lofty buildings. However, the strongest influential group there wasn't a dynasty, it was the Animal District. They had brought the 13 young beast masters back to life. They had sacrificed incredible amounts of beasts for those 13 young beast masters. Apart from that, they had also invited a bunch of beasts, and the beasts had also started having children who became powerful fighters. The Animal District considered themselves unexcelled in the world. The beasts who hadn't died continued rising. The Animal District started oppressing the dynasties, so in the end, the dynasties decided to form an alliance. The Animal District didn't dare bully them anymore. The Holy Spirit Dynasty was under pressure because back then, they had chosen to form an alliance with Lin Feng, so the Holy Spirit Dynasty and all the other dynasties didn't have good relations. It was visible in various aspects. Luckily, 10 years ago, Lin Feng had finished first at the meeting of the continent of the Nine Clouds, so the other dynasties had stopped bullying the Holy Spirit Dynasty too much. Now, the Holy Spirit Dynasty was waiting for Lin Feng to become a peerless cultivator, and for Lin Qiongsheng to become a really strong and talented cultivator in his generation. Lin Qiongsheng stopped practicing cultivation and he came out of his room. He took a deep breath. He felt good. He was 20 years old and he had already reached the very top of the Huang Qi layer. His qi was powerful. He looked handsome. He had inherited the best features from both of his parents. He raised his head and looked at the sun, smiling. My absorbing Tao is becoming great. It has already reached the first step. Now, the holy princes and princesses of all the other dynasties can't really compete with me anymore. Back in the days, my father captured the ancient Jade Dynasty's holy woman. Now I'll try, too. Lin Qiongsheng started flying. Today, a meeting was planned, and all the holy princesses and princes of all the dynasties had agreed to meet and exchange views on cultivation. It was a kind of competition. Every generation organized such events. Lin Feng had gone through such things, Lin Qiongsheng was going through such things as well. Just after Lin Qiongsheng left the Holy Spirit Dynasty, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu appeared. The guards of the Holy Spirit Dynasty were astonished, but everybody knew them there. Even if they had never seen them for real, they had seen illusions. The Holy Dynasty Prince and the mother of his child. They were both holy parents. Holy, the guard's mouth was wide open, he didn't know what to say. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu smiled at him and entered the Holy Spirit Dynasty. The guard was stunned, but he took out a jade talisman and informed some people the two were there. The message raced up to the top of the hierarchy. In the Holy Spirit Dynasty's holy palace, Holy Emperor Ling quickly learned about it. After that, many strong cultivators went out to welcome Lin Feng. It was the politest thing they could do. The most important people of the Holy Spirit Dynasty had to receive a warm welcome. Lin Feng walked forwards, and when he saw all those people in the distance, he was surprised and smiled. Holy Emperor, you're too polite. Ha, Lin Feng, time passes and you've become so strong. No wonder you finished first at the meeting of the continent of the Nine Clouds, said Holy Emperor Ling, smiling in welcome. Lin Feng's qi was only dimly discernible. They couldn't see what his cultivation level was. He also talked in a different way. He sounded like a wise scholar. 20 years had passed and Lin Feng had already changed so much. What would he be like 50 years from now? Lin Feng smiled naturally and said, Holy Emperor, you've been taking good care of Qiongsheng for 20 years. We are infinitely grateful. How is our son? I'll call him. Let's go to the main hall first, said Holy Emperor Ling smiling. No need, we'll go to him, said Lin Feng shaking his head. Holy Emperor Ling looked at Tang Yuyu and nodded. They started walking towards Lin Qiongsheng's palace, but then learned that he wasn't there. I forgot, there's a small meeting in Wangxian. All the holy princes and princesses are meeting there, said Holy Emperor Ling suddenly. I'll go to Wang Xian then. All right, we'll come with you, said Holy Emperor Ling happily. They all left together. There was a dimly discernible celestial qi in Wang Xian. Many people were there because some extraordinary young people were present. Qing Jiangshan is terrifyingly strong. He understands sky-oppressing Tao, he has inherited it from his ancestors. On top of that, he knows some extremely rare soul-destroying techniques. The holy woman of the ancient Jade dynasty is also extremely strong. Her deep abstruse Tao is powerful. Tianju Gong, all the geniuses of the universities are also strong. Don't forget Lin Qiongsheng, he's Lin Feng's son. He's terrifyingly talented and understands absorbing Tao. He can absorb incredible quantities of strength, and he's extremely strong. Everybody was talking and looking at the bunch of talented and extraordinary young people. At that moment, Qing Jiangshan said, Lin Qiongsheng, I've heard that your absorbing Tao has already reached the first level. When do you intend to kill me and absorb my strength? Lin Qiongsheng grunted coldly and replied to Qing Jiangshan, We'll see when you offend me. How arrogant, said Qing Jiangshan icily. Back then, your father dragged out an ignoble existence, he drifted and lived without purpose, and he used to hide in the Holy Spirit dynasty. He stole the saint of our dynasty, the Qin dynasty. Then, he finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Who do you think you are? We don't even know if Lin Feng is really your father. The Holy Dynasty Prince of the Great Desert Dynasty laughed and whispered, Indeed, back then, Lin Feng hadn't even been to the Holy Spirit Dynasty, but his mother was there already. Lin Qiongsheng was furious and felt humiliated. He was about to burst out. 2 insolent little boys, said a loud voice at that moment. It was Holy Emperor Ling, he had heard them, he was furious. They're trying to infuriate Qiongsheng on purpose, I don't know why, said Lin Feng calmly. He had evolved a lot. He didn't get angry anymore when people tried to humiliate him. Actually, he just killed them instantly. He didn't let anyone influence his emotions anymore. But he still wanted to see what those people intended to do. Young people compete occasionally, it's normal, but usually they don't go too far. They want to see how strong Qiongsheng is, said Holy Emperor Ling. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Qiongsheng said icily, All shitty cultivators know is how to hurt people by insulting them. You two come here. Qing Jiangshan frowned and glanced at Qiongsheng icily. Then he released qi in a surge of power. At the same time, Lin Feng frowned, Holy Emperor Ling and Lin Feng glanced at each other. Someone is coming, said Lin Feng to Holy Emperor Ling telepathically. Yes, many people, and one of them is as strong as me, if not stronger, said Holy Emperor Ling, looking solemn and grave. Yes, very strong, said Lin Feng nodding. He changed his face, surprising the Holy Emperor Ling. Some people arrived and noticed them. They inspected the area with their godly awareness for a few seconds, and then recalled it. Hey, said someone. Holy Emperor Ling frowned. The Holy Emperor of the Qin dynasty was there, too, but he didn't seem to notice them. However, why had such strong cultivators come? This was a competition between young people. Lin Feng looked at Lin Qiongsheng. He was fighting already. Something abnormal was going on. Many people from other dynasties are here, and they're extremely strong. There are many great emperors and celestial emperors. I think they came here because of Qiongsheng. If they didn't want to do something dodgy, they wouldn't need so many strong cultivators, said Holy Emperor Ling. He finally sensed danger. What was going? That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.